Welcome to Kaufman Writes, the #1 creative writing show on the internet for strategy, discussion, inspiration, motivation, and maybe a little bit of procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Welcome to our Saturday stream, the Saturday critique and review show. Oof, do we have a big day packed for you? So I am super excited. We have a lot of submissions and it is going to be fun. So if you haven't been by one of my previous Saturday streams, the way that this works out is we're going to be starting off first with a writing sprint because we can't really call ourselves writers if we're not doing a little bit of writing. So we're going to be starting off with a short writing sprint, about 20 to 25 minutes. Now, if it's been a long week for you, totally you can vibe out as I throw on some writer music and you can read as I'll write vicariously for the both of us. But let's say that maybe you're feeling creative this weekend. Feel free to get some brainstorming, writing, or editing done and join along. And then we'll hop straight into our critique and review show, where we'll be hopping into different stories for the day and really reading. I'm going to be doing readings, reviews, and critiques. So if you want your story read, throw up this banner right here. So make sure to send an excerpt of your story to the creative ghostwriter at gmail.com. Send me a submission with, I would say, between 1 to 5 pages, double spaced, and I will add it to the queue for our stories for today. Beautiful. And then let me hop in the comments. Joelle, welcome to the stream, my friend. Welcome, welcome. Hey, I just found a new character in the story, the smart one. That's his name. Yes, that's actually a really good name for a character, by the way, the smart one. I think that works well for your story. All right. And then, by the way, if you're watching this on the replay, or let's say that you submitted your story today and you missed it, here's the great thing. Once the stream ends, you'll be able to go back and watch on the replay and skip to the exact section that brings you the most value. After the stream ends, I go back and I add chapters to each section. So you can either watch the entire thing or you can hop around to whatever section, whether that's the readings, the critiques, the sprints, or any discussion in between. Perfect. All right. And let's get straight into it. So we're going to hop straight into a writing sprint, 25 minutes. Let me throw up my music. We got our Atomic Elf playlist, #1. Excellent. What's up, Stephanie in the house? Welcome, Stephanie. Isabella, what's up? Welcome to the stream. Excited for your stories. And Remy, welcome. Thank you for submitting today. I'm so happy to see you here. Woo, I am so excited for today's stream. Okay, but I need to blast into Last Scarecrow. So let's get into some writing first. All right, if you've been tagging along, you know that I have embarked on quite a journey with the Last Scarecrow. Right now I have the Scarecrow, the 6 characters. I have the Scarecrow, Pebble the Pixie, the Skunk with the evil sword, the Bear, Gore, Stretch the Snake, and their Dragonkin. So I got all 6 as they're traveling through the Shadowlands. All right, and let's see what happens to them today. They're in the middle of an action sequence. All right, 25 minutes on the clock. And let's right now. Actually, we need some more battle music. They're like in the middle of a battle right now. I need something more epic for this. Here we go. Welcome to the stream, man. Hopefully everything's not too tough for you today, but I'm happy that you're here. We'll give you some inspiration, some creative writing inspiration. just wanted to put up your comment. Wow, that's amazing. Well, sending love your way, my man. Sometimes life gets tough, but we take it step by step. man. Oof. All right. What a great writing sprint. Really, really good. I feel very successful in what I got accomplished on my end. All right. I hope that you were able to get some good writing or creation or development in on your end. Clearly, my our group of heroes are fighting a bunch of light silhouette soulless creatures at the bottom of a chasm and the beginning of the eastern monuments, these lands. So this is interesting. I finally decided, like, all right, I know what these creatures are going to look like. So that was fun. Oh, all right, I love it. I have way too much fun, and I know exactly how I will resolve this because they're getting onto the nest. But we'll continue on that tomorrow. So great writing sprint. Let's move along to the next part of our show. So we're going to hop into our live critique reading and critique show. Once again, if you want your story read, live reading by myself, or you want a critique of it, make sure to send me an excerpt to my email, thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com. I accept all types of submissions. I have no limitations on the types of submissions that I accept. I think the only material I could not do would probably be anything of a pornographic nature. I've been touching upon I've done serial killers, gore, fantasy, sci-fi, the whole shebang. And we have some fun ones up for you. Today, we actually have quite a mix of genres of stories. So we're going to have some really fun ones. All right. So let's see. Let me throw this. And by the way, are you enjoying the show? Now you can buy me a coffee. I just research signed up and added myself to this brand new website. Well, not a new website. I became aware of the website. Buy Me a Coffee. It's a cool little crowdfunding thing where you can literally just go and buy it's like listed as Buy Me a Coffee. I'm sure you've probably heard of it before, but you like go there and it's kind of like a tipping thing where it's like worded as buying a coffee, but you can do something that's like really cheap. So if you're getting any value out of the stream or you're getting any value out of any of the stuff that I put out, feel free to buy me a coffee. So that's something new that I'm trying. I will throw that up in the comments. All right, perfect. So I got that. And then let's get into the live story reading and critique show. All right, so let's go. All right, so with that out of the way, I'm all ready. So let me adjust my screens. So I need to change my setup a little bit. So bear with me just a moment. So that way I can put the readings on this screen. All right, and let's see. So I already have the stories queued up. So our first story, let's see. Let me pull up. My first story is going to be. Let's see. We got Mudzerker. So Andrew, I got you on deck as number one, my man. Where it's perfect timing. I'll get into this. I think this story will be a lot of fun, and I hope I'll be able to do a good reading for you, my friend. All right, so let me pull up your story. And all right, so I got them all set up on my other screen. I can have this, and then I'm going to throw up my timer as well. All right, and then the synopsis. By the way, how is all of your stories coming along today? I hope you guys have been able to get some good writing in on your end. Well, I'm finishing setting this thing up on my end. Let's see, almost. All right, and I think I got this going here, so I should be good now. All right, I got one, and I got the critique and the timer. Perfect. All right, and I got this all set up for y'all. There we go. All right. So as I'm setting up for this story, let's see. Let me throw up the comments. Isabella, 2,000 words today. Finally finished a chapter I've been putting off. Talk about the most like wonderful feeling, especially when you've been putting something off and then finally finishing it. You're like, woof, I'm done. I feel great. I can actually resonate with that when I get to parts of the story where I like don't know what direction to take it in. And even when I'm like, all right, I'll just do something random. When I get through it, or when you're dealing with like writer's block, for instance, you feel so you feel so accomplished when you get through it. So really great work. That's a really great feeling to have. I would much rather, if you're ever stuck in your story, as a side note, I would much rather that you write something, even if it's going to be complete garbage, even if it doesn't work for the story, write something, because if you write nothing, nothing happens. Tip of the day. All right. So we got that. And then, so before I hop into this, let me just go over a couple of my submission guidelines. So as I go through this process and I think about what is, let's see. So when I think about the submission process, so I start accepting submissions the Saturday from the previous live stream. So if you submit your story and it doesn't get read, it gets added to the next Saturday stream. My recommendation, right now, I currently accept submissions on a first come first served basis. So the sooner that you submit your stories, the more likely you are to have it read at the top of the show. Pro tip. And then formatting. So you send me, I accept stories as Google Docs, Word files, PDFs, final draft for scripts. I've been getting used to a lot of different formats. The formats that you're going to see on the screen, I have blown up the formats. I've blown them up to 20, nearly 18 to 20 point font, Comic Sans. 9 times out of 10, that was not the original way that I received it. That's for you, the viewer. So that way it gives you the ability if you want to read along. Based off Google research, Comic Sans is apparently the most popular format used by writers when working on their story itself, because it's the easiest to read on the eyes. So I've kind of taken that approach and it's worked very well. So if you see a story and you're like, wow, like 20, 30 pages, just know that's not, it's not the actual page count. And then the timer. So I can make sure that everybody gets their fair, or I try to like make it as even as possible. I split each reading and critique into 20 minutes. I try to break it up into a 20-minute reading and a 20-minute critique. Sometimes that changes. If I can get through the whole excerpt, I absolutely will try, because I like to try to get to the end of a story beat if possible. But it really depends on the timing. Awesome. And then let's see what else. And join the critique. So if you're reading and watching along, one of the greatest things, if you've ever been in a writer's group or you've ever been in a workshop, one of the coolest things is hearing feedback from others. So if there's something that stands out to you during the reading, or if something I say like resonates with you, don't be afraid to drop a comment. Share like something that really works well for you, because all feedback is good feedback. I'm of the mindset where like I've been in so many different types of writers groups over the years. It's, if you're framing your mindset from the perspective of we want to help you improve your story, it is all right to give feedback in a way that's kind. So something that resonates, drop a comment. All right, and I got that out of the way. So there's my guidelines. All right, and I got your story pulled up, Andrew Mudzerker. Ooh, that is not the friendly version. All right, there we go. Perfect. All right, and let me just check the comments. Haley, what's up? Welcome to the stream, my friend. Let's see. I got writer's cramp because I was I was having a kind of slow day at work. So I grabbed one of my writing journals and a pen and went to town. Yes. Yes, that is like sorry about the cramps. Sorry about the writer's cramps. Like that sucks. But it's and I where else I grabbed a writer's cramp. Oh, that's clever. that took me a second. You got a writer's cramp at work, so then you're like, oh, I have to write. That's actually really clever. In that case, I probably get writer's cramps like all the time. That's actually one of the coolest things if you're at work and you're able to like pull out your phone or pull out like a notebook. When I was at work, I would actually always keep a little small notebook on me so I could always be writing ideas down. I was a type like I never go anywhere without some sort of writing utensil, something to track my brain because I never want to miss out on a good idea, especially if I'm at a really good point in my story. Like Last Scarecrow right now is, oof, it's killing it. Oh, thanks for sharing, Haley. That's really cool. I'm glad you're able to get some writing done as a result from having a slow day. All right. Okay. So we got 20 minutes on the clock. Ringside Redemption by Mudzerker, aka Andrew Hall. So I got 20 minutes. All right. Oh, and by the way, if you see me highlighting, it's not a bad thing. It just I have to take notes so I can remember things to call out when I come back to it. So that's a main thing. Okay. Haley, no, like I had a soda and wrote so much I got a writer's cramp. So you did get a writer's cramp for writing too much. I just had to check that. I thought that was hilarious. I guess that's actually a good thing if you're getting a writer's cramp that you've written too much. I think that's actually a good problem to have. Getting writer's cramp from a result of writing too much. Yeah, I'd rather have writer's cramp than other types of cramps, of course. And then, yeah, no, that's actually a good problem to have. Then you know that's a successful day as a writer. Okay, so Ringside Redemption by Mudzerker. In the small town of Pinewood, amidst the gentle sway of towering pines, resided Ernest. Once a skilled mechanic, his life spiraled into the depths of despair following his father's untimely death. Consumed by grief, Ernest sought solace at the bottom of a bottle, drowning his sorrows until he lost everything he held dear: his job, his home, and even his family. Stripped of all he had cherished, Ernest roamed the quiet streets, engulfed by a profound sense of loss and loneliness. One fateful evening, seeking refuge from the biting cold in a dimly lit alley, Ernest encountered an unlikely savior, an old, weathered boxer named Jack. Despite his gruff demeanor, Jack radiated a calmness and wisdom that drew Ernest in. With nowhere else to turn, Ernest confided in Jack, revealing the torment that haunted him since his father's passing. To his surprise, Jack offered him a lifetime. Sometimes it's when we're at our lowest that we discover our greatest strength. Intrigued by Jack's words, Ernest began frequenting the rundown boxing gym on the outskirts of town where Jack trained. Under Jack's patient tutelage, Ernest unearthed a latent talent for boxing, a skill he never imagined possessing. As he immersed himself in training, Ernest found solace in the rhythm of the punches, the discipline of the regiment, and the camaraderie of his fellow boxers. Despite facing numerous setbacks and doubts, Ernest persevered, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose and determination. With each passing day, he grew stronger, both physically and mentally. As months drifted by, Ernest's metamorphosis caught the eye of Pinewood's tight-knit community. Soon, he found himself stepping into the ring for his inaugural bout, squaring off against a formidable opponent. In the charged atmosphere of the makeshift arena, Ernest was enveloped by a serene calmness. With Jack's words echoing in his mind, he embraced the challenge ahead, understanding that triumph was not defined by the victory alone, but by the courage to confront one's inner demons. In a climactic showdown that held spectators spellbound, Ernest fought with unwavering resolve, drawing upon the resilience he had cultivated in his darkest hours. Though he emerged battered and bruised, he stood tall, knowing that he had unearthed something far more precious than any material possession, a newfound sense of inner peace and strength. As he basked in the thunderous applause of the Pinewood residents, Ernest's gaze fell upon the crowd, and there, in the midst of the cheering spectators, he spotted two familiar faces, his ex-wife and son. Their eyes filled with pride and admiration. Their presence lent him a renewed sense of purpose and resolve, reminding him of the love and support he had once taken for granted. And in that defining moment, Ernest realized that genuine fulfillment lay not in the depths of despair, but in the arduous journey towards self-discovery and redemption. And in that defining moment, as he gazed upon the horizon with newfound clarity, Ernest vowed to face life's trials with the indomitable spirit of a champion, guided by the enduring wisdom of his mentor, Jack, a man who not only shared his name with the bottle that once held him captive, but also freed him from its grasp, lending him toward a brighter tomorrow where the love of his family would forever be his greatest victory. End excerpt. Really, really cool. Really great excerpt, my man. Thank you so much for submitting that. So, wow. So first off, I love how the theme of it was very, very clear, right? It's kind of like this redemption story. He's starting off as this like character, clearly he feels like he's lost everything. He's kind of turned to alcohol, and he comes across the mentor, Jack, who fills him with pride and gives him a place to train. And he goes through this boxing journey and then comes out the other side victorious. The overall plot of the story is actually really, really strong. And I would say that the message and the plot, so you guys can see I have my critique guidelines here. So that way you guys can see how things that I'm looking for. So when I think about what worked really well, the plot of it, plot and narrative, very, very strong. I absolutely love the plot or narrative. I think the world building was very cool as well. It kind of had this like, it almost had this kind of like mythical, not mythical, almost like when I think of your last story, it almost had this kind of like folkish tale vibe to it again. What's actually interesting is when I got to the end of the story, for some reason, I thought that you were going to take it in a direction of like Jack was like never existed or like some like thing like that. And it's like, because the true wisdom he found was in his soul or something like that. And I think that's because you made a point to Jack, a man who not only shared his name with the bottle. I feel like you could have actually done something a little more with that at the very end, only because there's that reference, right? So the fact that, right, Jack Daniels, of course, like, I feel like you actually probably could have dug a little bit more into that concept, but that's all right. That was actually just a random idea that came to mind as I was reading it. So let's like go through the beginning of it. Your setup for it was really good. I really liked, you set him up as this mechanic who's spiraling really as a result of his father's death. And he lost everything, his job, his home, and even his family. Yep. Yeah, what's interesting is like I thought about it, like if you went into more detail, you technically could explore the family a little bit, but it's not actually really that important. I think because the mom and the son are at the very end of the story, I would actually recommend adding like maybe either one or two sentences or potentially another paragraph here, just kind of describing the fallout with the mom and the son, since they make a return at the very end. That way it draws a better connection for like, oh, he's connected with like, what's the thing that he loves about his wife, right? He'll never be with his wife with the blue eyes again, right? And then it gives you an idea, and then it just makes it better resonate when they return in the end. Okay, that totally makes sense. And I like that. I think the message of it was very clear. And I think that was super cool. Yeah, I think the message definitely resonated. I think it's just punching up a couple of these opportunities. I wanted to actually call out this description. Very cool. It's one fateful evening seeking refuge from the biting cold in a dimly lit alley. I think it's just short and to the point, and I think it works. Encountered an unlikely saver, an old weathered boxer named Jack. So I like the description. I don't think that it goes too much that you have to spend a lot of time describing it, but I think it's enough where it gives me enough detail about like this back alley that he's now wandered into. Yeah, I definitely got that. I definitely picked up on the fact that he's basically like this drunk, like alcoholic, homeless guy wandering the streets. And I think that was clear. And I got the gruff demeanor from Jack. Jack rated a calmness and wisdom that drew Ernest in. Nowhere to turn, Ernest confided in Jack, revealing the torment that haunted him. To his surprise, Jack offered him a lifeline. Um, I I think that sometimes it's when we're at our lowest that we discover our greatest strength. I think to elevate Jack's quote here, I think there should be some sort of action in between here and then Jack responding. So Ernest confides in Jack, revealing the torment that haunted him since his father's passing. Does Ernest just like fall, like collapse on the ground? It kind of feels like, so like Ernest he's stumbling, he's a drunk homeless man. What happens? Like, how does he come? It just says that he encountered Jack. It's almost thinking, yeah. It's basically like he comes to this alley. It almost feels like it might be a little more powerful if you're like he comes to the alley and it just like collapses in a pile of trash, right? Because I would even punch up that the extreme nature of it, like clearly, like if he's literally should be giving up by giving like one line of like he's basically quitting at life, he's basically killing himself essentially through alcohol, and falls into a pile of trash, bomb in his own vomit or something to that effect. And I think that would actually punch up this a little bit, because I like Jack. Jack's actually an interesting mentor. The question that I ask myself is like, why does Jack help him out? Does Jack help out like all? Is he the type of person who is like, I like to help out all like the homeless, or I like to help out the people that I feel that I see something in? Or is there something special about Jack specifically? I see your point. I will give him more detail and send it back to you. Maybe have him drinking and stumbling down. Yeah, I think that would be good. And then like even if he like stumbled into Jack, like that would be a good like moment of like Jack trying to catch him, right? And I think because Jack's message is so powerful, I think I just want to see a little bit more of Jack's personality, because Jack's cool, right? And even if Jack's personality is like based off the picture of Jack Daniels, or like even if like Ernest doesn't even think that Jack's a real person because he's been drinking Jack Daniels, you could do so much with it. But because you're trying to keep it short, I would say just give Jack some sort of like defining dialogue, or just some sort of defining like characteristic beyond he's an old weathered boxer. I get that. Maybe it's more his motivation than anything else. I think that's what I want to know. Why does Jack help Ernest? And that's what I don't know right now. Let's see. To surprise, Jack offered him. Sometimes it's when we're at our lowest. But I like the quote. It's very direct. Sometimes it's when we're at our lowest that we discover our greatest strength. The quote's direct. You could probably even punch the quote up more if Ernest like says something that's very like negative, like, oh, I'm going to kill myself, or oh, nothing in life matters because drinking's everything. Exactly. It's really just doing a little character development more than anything. And I can tell you probably brushed over a little bit because you're trying to make this a shorter story. So the thing with something like this is you can take it in so many directions because there's always opportunities for more story development. But I think if you're going to keep it as short as possible, just give Jack a little bit more character development because it will punch up the message. Let's see, intrigued by Jack words. And then you got the whole training montage that works. He immersed himself. Ernest found solace in the rhythm of the punches. And I like that. This was my favorite quote in the entire story. Ernest found solace in the rhythm of the punches, the discipline of the regiment, and the camaraderie of his fellow boxers. I love that. Like that's a great description that really describes this place that Ernest now found. Under Ernest and the latent town. Ernest began frequenting the rundown boxing gym on the outskirts of town where Jack trained. Yeah, I mean it's a rundown boxing gym. The outskirts of town. Yeah, for this type of story, it doesn't really need more description. That's fine. A skill that works despite facing numerous setbacks and doubts. Yep, with each passing day, that works. Training montage. As months drifted by, Ernest's metamorphosis caught the eye of Pinewood's tight-knit community. Did you set up the town as Pinewood in the beginning? Yeah, you did. Town Pinewood, perfect. Soon he found himself stepping into the ring for his inaugural bout. Oh, I absolutely love that, man. That is so cool. That is so cool. And I just want to like give this as just a shout out, especially for writers, because we draw from inspiration when we're creating our work, when we're telling our stories. And I think when we're writing stories and there's like a message that really resonates with us, like do that, like write stories like this because you're inspired by that message and other people will be inspired by it as well. So like, that is really, really cool. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's awesome. I think this story definitely has the opportunity to really pack a punch with people. Quite literally. This story has the chance to pack a punch. All right. And let's see. Soon he found himself stepping into the ring for his inaugural bout, squaring off against a formidable opponent. I think in the chart of the make. So I think the biggest opportunity for the story right now is this climax, this scene, because I know, right? As I add some corniness to it. But I think, so I think the biggest opportunity for this is I need more description for this match. And what I mean by description is two things. One, I want a little bit more on this opponent because this opponent is essentially, I mean, you could argue that technically the antagonist this is a man versus nature story. So it's really man. It's really Ernest versus himself. And yeah, you could argue that. Alternatively, the opponent technically doesn't matter. If I think by clarifying what makes this opponent formidable, like he's knocked out every new heavyweight in town, or he's wants to shut their gym down, or he's used to be Jack's student and he punched Jack or something, right? Do something that makes it clear why he's formidable. But that's just a me thing. And also I'm not as familiar with the boxing world, so recognize that as well. All right. In the charged atmosphere of the makeshift arena, was not defined by victory, but by the courage to confront. And I really like this. Once again, I love this. Ernest was enveloped. I think I would just add a little more action as Ernest is fighting, because I imagine he's probably like dodging punches. He's getting beaten up and like, he's just like taking a punch and he's like falls against the side. I'm imagining arena. And then Jack's words are resonating in his mind, right? In the ring or cage, it's always you. In the ring or a cage, it's always you versus you. Interesting. Okay, that's actually really cool to know. I didn't even realize that. That's cool. So if anything, what I would say is include that, because like since I'm not too familiar with the world, that what you just said, in the ring or cage, it's always you versus you. include that because that's actually really interesting. You touch upon that concept right here with confronting the inner demons, but you can even add a little bit more as he's like dodging punches. Yeah, I actually totally got that. I definitely got a Rocky vibe from the scene. I definitely got that. So that's actually really cool. Let's see, in a climactic showdown, second that, include that. Yeah, 100%. I think including this right here, it's always you versus you. Like that's interesting. For someone who doesn't know about boxing, that actually makes it a little clearer for me if that was in it. Let's see, Isabella agrees. All right, and then in the climactic showdown, the spectators, Ernest fought with unwavering resolve, drawing upon the resilience he had cultivated in his darkest hours. Love it. Love your description. Love your detail. I love the language that you use. And I can see, especially from this one and then from your previous story I read, you have a very unique storytelling with the types of words that you use that make your stories feel a little like urban myth. And I actually think that's really, really cool. That's inspirational for me. Let's see, that I had merged Istratana and that under something from oppression, a newfound sense of inner peace and strength. Sebastian thunderous applause, earnest gaze. Okay, so I have a recommendation for adjusting this climax. With the wife and the son, I would recommend moving this, the wife and this earnest rose that genuine fulfillment. I would recommend moving the wife and the son spotting in right before the match ends, because it would actually up the stakes if he sees the wife and the son, he realizes he has this epiphany moment in journey fulfillment, laying out in the depths of despair, but in the arduous journey towards self-discovery and redemption. The opponent knocks him out. He feels like he's going to die again, but then as he's lying in a pool of his blood on the ground, he sees across the ring his wife and his ex-wife and his son watching. And that gives him the courage to realize like that what he's done is great and that he's going on the right path, gives him the journey or the courage to finish, stand back up, knock out the opponent and win the day. And I think that would actually make the wife and the son thing pack another punch. All right. Just this entire time. If there's one feedback I have for you, it's pack a punch. Okay. Yeah. So I think that would just punch up. No pun intended. That would just punch up the climax a little bit more and make it even more impactful. Yep. And then I already touched upon the end. So yeah, those are all my comments that I got for you. So yeah, I would say it just fine tuning some of these. It's really fine tuning some like the character development moments, and then if you want to adjust the climax, you could go either way. I just think that might make it stronger. Let's see. Knowing he was losing the fight to points, he started to have doubts when he sees his wife in the crowd. He knew he had more to fight for. Yep. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, no. When his family is seen in the crowd, he knew he had more to fight for. Yep, I think that would work perfectly. And then that way, he sees them inspired. He beats the opponent, and then the match ends, and then he has this defining like end of the story. Where the love of his family would forever be his greatest victory. As he gazed upon the right, earnest vow to face. Yeah. And I think that's great. And I think that would make the ending even more, it would make it resonate even more by doing that. So yeah, once again, really cool little short story. Let's see, Remy. I really like your story. Thank you for sharing. I really loved the line about Jack sharing a name with the bottle and giving him the key to freedom. I really like that too. I think that was one of my favorite lines. Jack sharing. It's kind of interesting. Now that you say that line, Remy, I almost have this like image of when Ernest stumbles into Jack in the very beginning, being like, he like runs into Jack and thinks Jack's like a hallucination, or he's like Jack Daniels. only because you make that reference at the end. I feel like there's an opportunity, Mudzerker, for you to make a Jack Daniels reference when he first meets him as well. You know what? If you want to do a trick, not secret, cool writer's trick, rule of threes. This is one of my favorite tricks. Rule of threes. You reference the Jack reference once. If you make 3 separate references throughout the story about the Jack Daniels or the connection with the trainer and something, even whether it's a joke, it's a thought, an action, whatever, it makes the third one really pack up. That's going to be on my mind for today's whole stream. It makes the third one really resonate. So I think that would actually be a cool opportunity as well. So let's see. Can add his son, come in his arms in the middle of the ring. Yeah, I think that would be great. That would be so perfect. So then at the last paragraph of the scene, he's like embracing his son for what feels like the first time since his rebirth, as he has that realization at the end of the story, where the love of his family would forever be his greatest victory. Great idea. I think that would actually tune up even more. Awesome. Thanks for bringing that excerpt over, my man. Really appreciate that. As always, thank you. Please send more. I love your storytelling. I love like the urban myth. I kind of like get the sense now that like you would have a really cool opportunity to collect some of these stories into an anthology and kind of create this like urban myth, urbanish myth type like anthology story. I'm really liking it. Yeah, anytime. And thanks for being a part of the community. Really appreciate you, man. All right. So let's hop into, let me throw this back up. All right. So who do I got next on deck? I got, let's see. We got Haley, the last Dragonkin. I got your story next on deck, my friend. All right. So let me pull up your story, Haley. All right, let's see. What do I got here? All right, and let's see. So I got Haley's as a document here. Perfect. So, all right. And Haley, just drop something in the comments. Let me know that you're here and paying attention. So that way I can be as involved with you as possible in this process. So just say something in the comments as I'm pulling your story up. So I'm super excited that Haley submitted that you were able to submit an excerpt for your story. And maybe it's just because I love dragons. So a story about literally called The Last Dragonkin, and I happen to be having a Dragonkin in my own story. I'm like, yes, success. So really looking forward to it. Let's see. All right, and I've got this pulled up here. Okay, here we go. I got that. It's like kind of annoying. I have to like reset the setup on the screen every time. All right, resetting the clock. All right, perfect. And I am all set up here. So I'm all set for The Last Dragonkin. Oh boy, here we go. All right, we're ready. Okay, so it looks like Haley, you sent over the beginning. So this is the beginning of your novel, and now I know you've been working on this for a while. Yeah, so we get to start at the beginning, which I always love because then we don't have to deal with missing out on context. Okay. And once again, y'all, so this is something I forgot to add earlier. All critiques, all stories that you send I do a brief like glance through when I first receive it, so I get a sense of what type of story it is. I don't actually read any of the stories beforehand. I feel like it keeps the reading experience as fresh as possible and the critique, so that way I'm going into every single story with a fresh slate. Since we're in Google Docs, I will actually remember to turn off Grammarly this time. All right, let's turning off Grammarly. All right, I don't need that right now. Okay, and then let me make sure I got my highlighter. I always forget. Okay, perfect. All right. The Last Dragonkin. Diana opens her bright red eyes. Oh, let me, before I hop into it, Haley, our definitions of what a dragonkin are may be different, though. I didn't know they were a thing and literally thought I'd made the species up when I first started writing this. You know what? That's interesting. When I put the dragonkin in my story as well, I didn't. I think the only place where I've heard the term dragonkin specifically was probably from like a video game. I feel like I've heard it from a video game once or twice. I don't actually know if dragonkin are a clearly defined species. Originally, I was just going to create a dragon, but then I'm like, all right, well, I want to create like something small because I needed like more of like a small companion than like a larger one. And I'm like, I think dragonkin are kind of like tinier creatures based on how I would like envision it. So that's kind of what came to mind. But I'm not actually sure if there's a standard definition for what a dragonkin is, especially in like the fantasy genre, for to the same extent that there would be like standard for like elves, dwarves, orcs, and those type. But here's the great thing. We get to define it. And I think that's the fun thing. Okay. The Last Dragonkin. Diana opens her bright red eyes and stretches out her arms and wings as she looks around the cave she shares with her adopted elder brother. She notices that he's still asleep and sighs slightly, smiling at him. Sleepyhead, she mutters as she walks over to their fire pit. She breathes out a small black fireball that ignites the small pile of tinders into a red flame. Diana never understood how the flames would always change to red when every dragon she had met had a flame color to match their scales. But she had learned not to question it. Walking over to where they keep food stored, she notices that their food supply is low. She grabs a rock and scratches a note in dragon runes to her brother before grabbing her human disguise of a long black hooded cloak. She also makes sure to grab multiple small pouches in which to store the food she gathers and flies off. She weaves in and out of the rock faces as she makes sure that no one sees her as she flies down the mountains toward the forest. She lands in the forest at the base of the mountain and quickly pulls her hood over her horns and adjusts the cloak over her wings and tail so that she can pass as a human temporarily. Walking through the trees, she feels a sense of peace as she begins to gather various fruits, berries, nuts, and mushrooms that she and her brother ate regularly. Noticing a few small roots sticking out of the ground, she digs them up, knowing that they taste amazing when roasted. She knows that if she has time, she should also kill a small animal, like a young wild boar, or something similar, so that she and her brother will have meat. She continues to gather and notices a small patch of berries that she and her brother enjoy. Dragon berries. Pulling another small pouch from her cloak pocket, she begins to fill it with berries. However, the sound of hoofbeats makes her look up and towards the sound. Two men and knights armor are riding through the trees in her general direction at top speed. Diana freezes at the sight of them, having witnessed countless dragons die at the hands of men like these, her parents among them. She gets even more scared when she sees the swords on their belts. One of them notices her and slows his horse to a trot before stopping beside her. "Greetings, miss," he says politely. "Might I ask why you are picking those berries? Dragon berries aren't safe to eat." My brother and I have a trick that makes them safe," Diana lied. In truth, dragons could consume these berries without problems, which is how the berries earn their name. The male dismounts and removes his helmet, revealing blonde hair and blue eyes. He studies her quietly before asking, "Is that so? Or is it that you and your brother are immune to the poison these berries hold?" Diana tenses up, thinking, "Crap, what do I do? I can't tell them I'm a dragon. They'll kill me." The male crouches down next to her, trying to see under her hood. "I thought so. You're a dragon, aren't you?" That breaks Diana, and she suddenly turns and sprints off at top speed, stashing the bag of berries in one of her cloak's many pockets. "Hey, wait!" the male yells. "Violet, after her! We have to make sure she doesn't run into Garrett!" Diana glances over her shoulder to see that both knights are back on their horses and are pursuing her. "Crap!" Diana screams in her head. She runs into the thick underbush and hides among it. A good move, as she hears the horses whining and glances back to see them rearing, unable to follow her further. The horses can't fit through there. We'll have to follow her on foot," said the male from before. "Why'd she run off?" asked the other. "I'm not sure, but my guess is she witnessed things during the war, and now she's scared of anyone in knight's armor. Remember, while she may look young, she's been alive for longer than mother," replies the first as he dismounts again and ties his horse to a tree. "Zach, if it's true that she's scared of knights, then why did we pursue her? She's probably terrified by this point. If she's even actually a dragon," asked the second rider. He sounds younger than the first, copying the first before beginning to search the underbrush with him. "Because I want to see if it's who I thought it was," Derek told me Diana sometimes comes out alone to harvest berries or to hunt since the war was 50 years ago. But if it is her, we need to make sure she gets out of here before Garrett finds her. And I'm positive that they are a dragon, whoever they may be," replies the writer, now identified as Zach. Diana's eyes widen at the sound of her name and her brother's. How does he know Derek? And why do I have to get out of here? Who's Garrett? And why do I have to avoid him? "So you think it's Diana?" the unnamed writer asks, beginning to dig around in the underbrush, trying to locate her. "Exactly." Zach looks around in the underbrush for her. "If Garrett finds her, he will most likely either kill her or try to use her against Derek. We have to find her or whatever that was and get them out of here." Diana is so focused on Zach that she doesn't notice that the other rider has spotted her until he grabs her shoulder, making her give a small shriek of alarm. "Ah!" Zach whips around and sees what's going on. "Violet, let her go. You probably just scared her worse than I did." Sorry. I didn't mean to scare her." The other boy, now known as Violet, lets go of Diana's shoulder. As she stumbles away from him, her hood slips, revealing her 45-degree angle black horns to them. "So it is you," says Zach, trying to step closer, but Diana continues to keep her distance. I I don't know you," Diana stutters, her eyes darting between the two. Her eyes were focused mostly on their swords, but she was watching them both closely in case she had to flee or fight. She made sure to keep enough distance that if they drew their weapons, she could escape before they got to her. I know your brother," Zach explains. "He and I were friends, and he knew my parents before that. I'm not going to hurt you, and neither is Vilad. We just want to talk to you and get you out of the forest. That doesn't mean I can trust you. It's all just talk until I have proof, Diana replies, her eyes flicking between the weapons attached to their belts. Many dragons had human friends before the war. Even if I leave this area, I will do so under my own power. We won't hurt you, Violet promises. We understand that you are scared, but we promise that no harm will come to you. I know Dark as well, and I promise that no harm will come to you. But we need you to come with us for now. Our brother isn't as kind as if he finds you out here, he will surely try to kill you. Why? Diana exclaims fearfully. Please lower your voice, Zach begs her. I can't explain why Dark hasn't told you, but my guess is he was trying to protect you. Told me what? Protect me from what? What's going on? Diana questions frantically, though she does as he had asked and lowers her voice. Zach shakes his head and says, It isn't my place to tell you, but you must leave this area. We aren't sure we aren't being followed. If our brother is following us, he will most likely try to hurt you, so you must leave now before he finds you. Oh, okay, Diana stutters. She quickly takes off her cloak, only to realize that in order to take off, she'll need to scale a tree that could allow her to get clear of the surrounding branches. She leaps up and grabs the branch, scrambling up as high as she can, and spreading her wings once she's high enough. She flaps them hard and takes off skyward. She glances back once to see that both knights had watched her leave before returning to their horses. She streaks home as fast as she can, but still remembers to fly around the back of the mountains to keep anyone from seeing her. Her mind is spinning with questions as she lands and runs into the cave, crashing into her brother, Darek. Whoa, Diana, what's wrong? He yelps, catching her as she almost falls. I ran into some trouble in the forest, Diana explains bitterly. Couple of nights. She then clenched her fists, and I acted like a scared child. Hey, take it easy. It's probably better that you didn't attack them. Did you get their names at all? Derek tries to calm her down, placing a hand on her shoulder. No proper introductions were done, but they knew my name and yours. I believe they call themselves Zach and Violet. Diana replies. Why? Were they friends of yours? They still are, Derek says, and visibly relaxes now that he knows that she hadn't been in any serious danger. Remember how I told you I still have one human family that I mostly trust? Of course, but what does the... Oh. Diana starts to retort, then trails off. That was the two of them, wasn't it? Yep, Dark replies, and is visibly trying not to laugh. But don't worry. I'll make sure they apologize for scaring you, and you'll have the chance to apologize for running off and not trusting them. How do you know that? Diana asks, looking up at him skeptically. Because they're on their way to visit us, Derek replies. They were probably on their way here when they spotted you. How'd they figure out who you were anyway? Diana pulls out the pouch of dragonberries and tosses it to him. Those. Ah. Dragonberries. Dark shakes his head once he looks into the pouch. Diana, you have to remember that no one can see you picking these. Sorry, Dark. Diana replies. I spotted them while gathering other things and couldn't help it since we both enjoy them so much. It's fine. Just be more careful in the future, Dark says. Now, we probably have a little time left before those boys arrive, so I want to ask you, did they mention anything else? All right, and I'm going to end there. I'm going to end the reading there, so that way I can hop into some critiques. Awesome. Let me pull it up. First off, I absolutely love this story. I absolutely 100% love what you have going for with the story so far. I was very engaged with the action and the dialogue that you had as you were setting up the dragons, these two knights, because you're setting up the knights as these kind of antagonists at first glance, but then really, oh, they're friends. So that's actually really cool. And I think it goes to show the dichotomy of Diana's mindset and the world, right? Completely agree. Like I love it. You have me at Dragonkin. So I absolutely love. I think Diana's a really interesting character. I'm actually really intrigued by both her and her brother. I don't remember his name. Her and her brother, Derek. I think it's Derek because it's an ice. I'm pretty sure it's Derek. So I'm actually really intrigued by the dichotomy of the siblings, and I actually like really want to know more, as I'm sure you probably hop into more description. I could tell that the next part of the story you're about to hop into some description probably about the more of the evil brother. So you're probably going into more of, I would say, probably setting up some stakes for the next portion of the story we're about to hop into. Okay, so let's get into some specific details. So actually, first off, what I want to say, Haley, is the character development was really cool so far. And this was just from, now I know I'd blown this up. I did about 15 pages, which is probably about maybe 6 to 8 pages would be my guess. So the character development from a first standpoint was very cool. I really like Diana's mindset. She's kind of set up as this, I would say she's almost set up as kind of like a passive character. You could tell there's been some sort of war, something with Dragonkin or dragons, something that happened in the past, which is interesting. And she's very fearful of humans. I think what you chose to do with the plot in this first section was actually very well done, because now we've got an introduction to both of those knights. What's that? Violet and Zach. And clearly they're actually friend characters. So I actually think that was a really good call on your part. So I would say character development and the world building is cool. I don't get too much world building because it's just so early on, but the plot was really, really cool. Okay, so let's go into some of the minutia. Sleeping at this a cute little opening scene. Let's see. She breathes out a small black fireball. I like this. I'm like, so she's a dragon that can breathe like black fireballs. Like that's actually really cool, because I always assume it's like fire, red. That's actually cool, but it's a black fireball that creates a tinder into a red flame. I think that's a cool description. How the flames would always change to red when every dragon she had met had a flame color to match their scales. But and you see, that is such a cool, so this is actually a cool world building thing right here. You've set up a background for how the Dragonkins are their fire, which is probably such an integral part of their characters. So that was super cool. I like that. Let's see, before grabbing her human disguise, the long black hooded cloak, she also made sure to grab small pouches. So I think the one thing that I would want to see in this opening paragraph, I think I want a little bit more description of Diana. And when I say description, I think I want a little bit more of a physical description. Now, you touch upon her horns later, which is fine. But because you refer to her so many times as a dragon, which is obviously important, and we have so many different types of ideas of what a dragon is. I pronounce Derek and Vlad. Derek. Okay, so it's Derek and Vlad. Okay, that makes sense. So I think because people coming into a story like this are going to have preconceived notions of what a dragon is. And recognizing that, you want to either use the lore of what dragons are or set up your own lore, right? And it kind of sounds like you're setting up your own lore of what dragons are going to be like in your world. So what I need is I just need a little bit more physical description on what Diana looks like. Now, I know you touch upon her scales and a flame, and you touch upon her flames, which are cool. And you know that she needs the hood to disguise herself. You don't have to do something in detail, especially if part of her description is you're using it as a reveal in the scenes to come. But I do need a little something so that way I can visualize, like, okay, is she a dragon where she like walks around on her hind legs and she like walks around, or is she a dragon where she crawls on all four? Like what do her, so she has red, let's see, because her scales, let's see, she breathes out a small black fireball that ignites a small pot. I never understood how the flames would always change to red when every dragon she had met had a flame color to match their scales. Okay, so her flame changes to red, but her scales are black. I'm pretty sure she's a black dragon. So I think what would really be really beneficial, Haley, is I would even add a paragraph description of, you don't even have to set up her, maybe have her describe her brother, right? Because we just need to know what the dragons or the Dragonkin look like in this world. And I'm assuming that these characters right now are dragons, not Dragonkin. Even though the story is called Last Dragonkin, I'm sure that's probably part of the plot. So I would just set up that distinction, that differentiation. So that way, when the reader goes into the story, they can have some type of idea of like, okay, so this is kind of how she would walk. This is like the type of skills that they would have. You want to give an overall idea of how the dragons are going to act in your world. Let's see. This opening scene with them is good. I think I think this paragraph, her landing in the forest, I would just cut down a little bit, and that's just more on, let me cut it down to 12, which would be normal. Yeah, Haley, just on this opening paragraph, when she first lands in the forest, I would just cut down a little bit. I hate, as a reader, seeing large chunks of text, and we want to make your stories as easy as possible to read for your readers. Readers can easily zone out when they see just long blocks of text. It's not always the case, but I always try to, especially in the very beginning, I would just break it up a little bit. Always my recommendation. Let's see. To me, a Dragonkin is one with the ability to shift between a human form and a dragon form, and the human form still has dragon features. That's cool. I love that. Tell me that. And I'm sure you probably explore that more in depth. But you see, like, I never would have known that. But that's actually super cool. I actually want to learn more about that because that's so intriguing to me. In terms of like the dragon dynamic so far in the story, the thing that I'm most intrigued about is the fire that changes color based on the shape of based on their scale color. And then she has this like cool black horns, but that's kind of all that I really have picked up on her appearance or even on her ability so far. And that's just in the couple pages. Let's see, my brother, and I have a trick that makes them safe, Dynalite, and truth dragons could consume. Yeah, this whole thing with the dragon berries, that was perfect. I wouldn't change that. This is just a note. No quotes. If she's thinking something, no quotes. Quotation marks are purely used only for dialogue. Otherwise, and that's an industry standard. Otherwise, it confuses the reader. Tenses up thinking, crap, what do I do? And I think with something like this, I mean, it looks like you did italicize it, so that's perfect. If you want to highlight it more, you could even do something like this, tenses up thinking, or you could leave it like that if you really want to make this stand out. But by italicizing it, you did make it stand out already, so that works. Just no quotation marks. Let's see, the mail. This is good. Violet after her. Let's see. That's right. So right now, so we have a Violet and Zach. And I want to say Zach is the older one and Violet's the younger one. If I got that correctly. How she made it look young. She's been alive for longer than Mother. This quote right here is actually really cool. This quote does so much for world building that she's been alive for longer than Mother. I'm like, this tells this tells some interesting backstory in these two knights who are probably seems like they're going to become important characters. And you touch upon the war. That's good. All good world building. Zach, if it's true that she's scared of knights, then why did we pursue her? She's probably terrified by this point, if she's even actually a dragon. Yep, this was good. You did perfect with this on this interiority. Who's Garrett and why do I have to avoid him? This is some really good. That's exactly how you do interiority. I describe her dragon form as described later on. They spend most of their time in her human form. So I tried. Yeah, I think that's what I would do then. I would just better describe that only because she's described as a dragon, right? So if she's in her human form, literally just explicitly say she watched. You could even do it like you could do it in a way where like you can explore like the way she looks in this scene with Zach and Dialek. I'm like blank on the words with Zach and Derek. No, wait, Zach and Violet. I'm like blanking on the names. So you could explore her appearance in this, but I think just by explicitly saying in the beginning, she watches her brother sleeping in his human form. Dragons can shift between human and dragon form, and you can like save the exploration of her dragon form later. That's totally fine. But I think clarifying that will help the reader a lot and help them better get into your story. Let's see, 45 degree. I love this horn. This was my favorite description as she with the horns. I'm like, this just makes me want to learn more about these dragons. Like I want to know more about them. And then what you've shared with me here in the comments, like that's cool. I want to know more. Let's see. Her evil promises, we understand you're scared. Please lower your voice, Zach begs her. Now, as I was going through this, yep, Dirt, but don't worry, I'll make sure they apologize for scaring you. So I'm not going to have time to really dive into the dialogue, but this is my other recommendation or piece of advice for you, Haley. There's the plot and the narrative work perfectly. All of the elements that you have for the world building, like the things that they say, work very well. The entire scene with Zylek, I'm like Zach and Violet. Sorry, I keep mixing up their names. With Zach and Violet, and even the way when you introduce like their names when as they speak more, like that's perfect. Some of their dialogue feels a little wordy. Now, what I would recommend doing when you go back and like your next review of it, or even of just like the scene, go through each piece of dialogue, and this is something that I would do, or if you hand it off to an editor, this is another thing that generally an editor would do. I would recommend go through each piece of dialogue and find ways if you can shorten the dialogue. And this could be subjective. I'd have to dive deeper into it to get a better idea. But I think just some of the dialogue could be cleaned up a little bit so it moves the scene along at a faster pace. Because right now it's an action scene, right? She comes down, the knights find her, they're chasing her. They catch up to her, they explain it, and they tell her to fly away. And I think because it's supposed to be a little bit more action based, some of the dialogue slows it down just because there's so much dialogue that's happening. And I think some of it, there could be some opportunities. And that would just, when I say clean up wordiness, I just mean like cleaning up, like cut out like extra words, cutting out extra like sentences that aren't 100% important and critical to what the plot is. And you're doing world building. So it has to be important to what the plot is in the scene, or if it's doing world building or technically character development. But I don't think the character development is too important for Zach and Violet right now. It seems like it's more important for really Diana's character. So that would be my recommendation in just when you go through your next like review to kind of clean up the dialogue. And I think that would speed up the scene for the core purpose of you don't want a chance losing your readers, especially this early on in the story. So yeah, and then where I left off, like I want to know more about the brother. I want to know more about the world. The questions that you've set up throughout the story so far, perfect. Very, very perfect. I'm already intrigued by the story. So really great work, Haley. Yeah. That's all that I got for you. Thanks for submitting this, Haley. That was actually really cool. I know that you've been I know that you were thinking of sending it over for a little while. So I actually really appreciate that you were able to share it. And like I absolutely love it already. And I've only read a couple pages of it. So definitely like keep working on it. And I'm eager to see as it develops and gets to publication. That'll be like so cool. So that's all that I got for you. I hope this some of this feedback was able to help you out. Excellent. All right, perfect. So let me throw this back up. A wonderful, really good little reading. And let me pull up my next one. So let's see. Reading number 3, I got Sean Spence. Sean, I got your script is next on deck. Reading number 3. Sean, you're on deck. Just drop a comment. Let me know if you're here in the chat. Oh, perfect. You are here. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Thanks again for sharing, Haley. And I think this is also a good call out. It's sometimes it can be hard to put your stuff out there into the world, especially when you've been working on something for so long, for years and years. So I just want to say, and I think I said something similar with Mudzerker as well, is just like recognize how much time you put into it, appreciate the fact that you've gotten it to a point, and then appreciate like yourself because like that's really cool. And it's hard. It is difficult to put together a very expansive story with plots, with characters, with worlds, dialogue, all the stuff, and make it feel fun, realistic, and engaging. And I would definitely say, Haley, you did a good job of making it engaging. I could definitely see you building up a nice reader base with it when you get it out there. It's actually because those 2 became major characters, so I don't know how much I'll change with them. Okay, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I don't think you need to change the characters at all. I think it's more from like a grammar instructor perspective and less character development in terms of wordiness. But yeah, I wouldn't change your characters at all. 100%. They both seemed interesting. And you definitely get the sense that they're both that you're setting them up to be bigger characters. So that's cool. All right, excellent. So I'm pulling up Sean. And Sean, by the way, I finally set it up the right way. We're just going to do this in Final Draft. I'm like, of course I have Final Draft. I don't know why I didn't just do that originally. Awesome. And this is probably also a good time to mention that if also for saying things alleged as I was experiencing. Yeah, it's totally all good. Totally no worries. I'm actually glad you said that, Haley. So sometimes the live streams, because I'm like streaming to so many different sources, sometimes like internet connections are just not perfect. I always recommend if you're wanting the full experience of your critique, make sure to go back and watch your section on the replay after the video, after the stream ends, and then it'll be uploaded. And that way you can make sure you get all the value out of it. If I do a critique for your story and you ever have questions, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to dig into any of my critique because like at heart, like I love your stories and I want your stories to get to the level that you want them to get to. And I would be happy to always provide clarification. I know, Sean, you're probably laughing at the Final Draft. I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I didn't just use Final Draft before. Okay. But I need to see. Perfect. I think I got this like perfectly formatted. Okay. So before I throw up Sean's, no. Yeah, because you're saying you're experiencing major delays. All right. So before I throw up Sean's, let me throw up my plug. if you found any value from the stream so far, from the readings, the sprints, the critiques, or anything, don't forget to tap that subscribe button or tap the follow button if you're on like Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and let me know that you're enjoying the experience. I will be here every single Saturday doing these readings and critiques for free. That's never going to change because I love doing this process. So I'll be here every Saturday. If you're subscribed or following me, you'll be alerted when I go live and when these experiences come up through my YouTube channel. I also post, or not post, I create writing shorts, creative writing short videos, and creative writing long form videos every single week to give you inspiration and to help you become a better writer. I also live stream my writing process every single day. So come join me if you ever just want to kick back and come chill with a creative writing community, or you need to get some writing done. I'll help you guys help me stay accountable with my writing process, and I'll be happy to help you stay accountable if you're struggling with getting in some good writing. All right, so I got you queued up here, Sean. Let's see. By the way, Robin says hi and really. Hi, Robin. That's really sweet. Sean, tell Robin I'm saying hi as well. Thanks for dropping by the stream, my friends. It's been so long since my days as a screenwriter back in Los Angeles. So I definitely miss those days sometimes, but I hope you two are doing well. And I really appreciate that you guys are dropping by. I've been having such a blast reading through your script, Sean. And yeah, so it's been fun. I hope I hope you guys are finding like some good gigs and some good work on your end, and that things are just turning out really well. Now that the industry is kind of hopefully in a better place than it was before the strike. So I hope everything's working out well for you guys this year. All right. So I got this queued up. Perfecto. All right. All right, so we got exterior, Williams home day. All right, so we're doing another excerpt from Torrent. If you've been here on the previous streams, you know that this was a screenplay excerpt. We got I want to say it's a serial killer kind of crop. It's a serial killer kind of cop. Not a procedural. It's like a cop thriller type screenplay. We got this like really like creepy serial killer, this like teacher character who's like really creepy in the past excerpts. And we have this really fun cop duo. So this is the next excerpt we're in. Let's see what we got. And then because I'm in final draft, let me see how my highlighter works here. Okay. Every single processing program that I do, I always have to play around with the highlighting to see like, all right, what's the way I can do it the most like quickly and effectively in a reading. Okay. All right. Torrent by Sean Spence. Exterior, Williams home, day. As Nick and Billy's squad car pulls into the driveway, Rob and Sarah stand on their porch. Rain pours from the pergola while Nick and Billy exit their squad car to meet them. See? They're here. About time. I am tired of this. The two officers make their way onto the porch. Thank you, officers. Rob. I got this, Rob. Look, I don't mean to sound like Flojo, but are you going to do anything about our neighbor across the way? I'm sorry, Flojo? A broken record. Rob shrugs his shoulders. Neither the cops are impressed by Sarah's analogy, let alone her historical reference. Mr. and Miss Williams, we truly appreciate you calling us every time your neighbor freaks you out, but she is up to something. I just know it. She gave me a look today that just made me feel like, I don't know, like she's insane. Like, Miss Williams, Miss Williams, there's no law that says she can't give you a look. Tell them what you saw, Rob. I mean, it was really nothing. Nothing? You said she waved at you in a creepy way. Sure, but maybe she had arthritis. Sarah pulls out her cell phone and scrolls through her videos. Here she is. Here she is. This was today. Look at her. Did you record her when we got home from shopping? Yes, and it is a good thing I did. Tell me that this isn't a woman who's up to something. Just watch. Begin cell phone video. In the video, we see Rob wave to Miss Summers, recorded from inside the house, shooting out the front window. As Miss Summers waves back, Rob picks up the groceries and walks towards the front door. Miss Summers lowers her head, her hand back to her side, and stands motionless as the video continues. Honey, how are you? Where are you? As Rob's voice fades in the video, Miss Summers can be seen entering her house. Seconds later, Miss Summers' blood-curdling scream is heard. The video shakes, then ends cell phone video. Tell me that's someone who I should not be afraid of. Miss Williams. The pounding, banging over there, not to mention the shouting, no screaming, coming from her house. I complained about all this months ago. All that shrieking. Did anyone really look into it? Miss Williams, I don't know how many times we can tell you. We have checked it out and it's nothing. Seriously, honey, she's an old lady. It could be her TV. Sarah glares at Rob. She scrolls through her recorded videos and lands on one of Miss Summers' house, hitting play. The sound of faint wailing can be heard under the motor of what can only be described as a rusty chainsaw. Tell me that this is normal. Time after time, your fellow officers told me this was nothing. Is that what you're going to tell me? I don't see a problem giving it a look-see again. Thank you, Officer Wallace. And it's not a problem at all. Right, partner? Right. We'll go check it out again. I'm sorry. A look-see? Sarah yelling to officers. If she's doing construction over there, you may want to find out if she has permits. Officers! Well, they walk away, clearly able to hear Sarah. Nick and Billy continue through the rain, crossing the street towards the neighbor's house. You know, there's a better analogy for a broken record than Flojo, right? She broke a lot of track records. I still don't think you're using it correctly, but what do I know? Rob turns and goes inside as Sarah watches the officers continue up to Miss Summers' porch. Exterior, Miss Summers' home, day. The two officers step onto the porch. Rain pours off their slickers, barely protecting their police uniforms. I swear, this day keeps getting better and better. Hey, this is the job. My God, you have a comment for everything, don't you? Nick presses the doorbell. Ding dong. No answer. As he presses it a second time, Billy peeks in the front window. Pretty dark in there. Looks like she's not home. Who lives here? Interior Miss Summers' home, master bedroom continuous. The doorbell rings again as Miss Summers peeks out from behind the curtains of one of the second-story windows. Miss Summers giddy with delight. Wow, what a pleasant surprise. You would not believe who it is. Miss Summers turns away from the window, seemingly talking to someone in the room. I know, I am just as shocked. Hidden behind the drapes, Miss Summers looks back out the window, watching as officers walk back to their car. Exterior Miss Summers' home continuous. Nick turns to face the house as he and Billy reach the squad car. He focuses his gaze on the two second-story windows. Did you see something? What? Do you think she's home? Do you want to try again? Nick tries to peer past the drapes of the upstairs window. A faded shadow seems to be standing motionless behind one of the stained curtains. Let's get out of this rain. I'm with you there. And what was with that Flojo reference? I wonder how long it took her to come up with that one. Plus, there are so many better. Get the fuck in the car. Nick and Billy shut their respective car doors. Nick, through the rain-soaked windshield, takes one last survey of Miss Summers' property. Interior Miss Summers' home, master bedroom continuous. Miss Summers steps away from one of the windows, moving further back into the darkened room. It looks like Nick has a new best friend. What a shame. And don't take this the wrong way, but he is a little cuter than you, too. She exits the room, leaving the taxidermy corpse of Fernando staring out the window from behind the curtains. See, I told you. Cuter. Through the window, we see the squad car pulling out of the driveway, disappearing down the street, the sound of Miss Summers humming. Slowly fades in the background. Scene. Oof, man. Once again, that was really good. That was really interesting. Oof. I like the more excerpts that I'm reading, Sean, I like really want to know more and more about the story. I'm like, Miss Summers is this like creepy, like evil, like old lady. And I'm like, but clearly she is like, she's not going to stand a chance against some like buff officers who come to find her, which tells me that like the majority of the story has to be a type of cat and mouse chase, unless she's not alone. I guess that could be another possibility as well. But that's really interesting. You've set up a lot of really interesting questions and some really interesting theories throughout the story. Now, when I think about this excerpt in particular, it essentially we're broken up into two separate scenes. We have the Rob and Sarah scene, and then we have the what is it? Billy and Nick scene. I like totally when I started, I like totally like mixed up the two guys. I'm like, wait, okay, now come back. Rob, Sarah, Billy, Nick. Gotcha. Okay. So let's see. So when I hop into this, Sarah and Rob, they kind of like they work. They're kind of like that kind of like young bickering couple. Sarah's kind of like, you can tell she's really just in her own world and just kind of just not the most likable of individuals. And Rob tries to be like the nice guy. Rob and Billy kind of have like similar-ish personalities, and that way they both kind of seem like the nice guys of these dynamics. where Sarah and Nick are the assholes in their partnerships. Yeah, that was just something that stood out. It almost feels like there should be a moment where like Rob and Billy should like have a moment of their like, it kind of seems like they're in the same position of that Sarah and Nick are assholes. That was just kind of funny to me. Let's see. Once again, Sarah continues to come across as the Karen, so to speak. Clearly she's like nonstop. They kind of think she's crazy. She takes videos. I was like, okay. Let's see. I don't mean to sound like Floja, but are you going to do anything about our neighbors across the way? You know what? The only thing with this reference is I missed the reference. So Floja, I'm like, wait, what? Like, wait, what is? Like, I feel like that went right over my head. Flojo, Florence, also was an American track and field athlete. Yeah, so like for me personally, and this could just be because it's not targeted towards me personally in terms of the reference, but I didn't know what the Flojo reference was, but it could not be targeted towards me. I just wasn't sure who Flojo is. So that part I just didn't get, but that's fine. Rob shrugs his shoulders. Neither cops are impressed by Sarah's analogy, but let alone her historical reference, right? So I understood that it was some type of reference to someone or something that happened. Let's see, Mr. and Miss Williams, we truly appreciate. Let's see, we truly appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, potentially. And I mean, I think with references, so whenever you reference figures, whenever you reference events, the challenge when we reference a specific event is they become outdated the longer that time passes, the longer that it passes. By the time, let's say, your script gets pitched, produced, picked up, pitched, picked up, developed, produced, and then it's actually seen by an audience, could be anywhere between 1 to 3 years. The production process can be a lot, unless of course you're doing it yourself, like you can make it happen sooner. But by the time this comes out, it makes a reference a little more even more outdated. So with references, you always have to pick things that are like very widely known, or that are like very, very widely known, right? So if you reference anything from like the presidential stuff going on, everybody knows about that because that's common. If you reference something from one of the wars going on, everybody knows about that. You have to think of like the biggest pop culture things. If the exception to that is if your script or your story is targeted towards like a specific audience or a specific demographic. So if, for instance, because this is a thriller, right? So like I would almost make the reference some type of like thriller, like some sort of pop culture phenomenon that's made that anyone who's like a thriller fan would know, right? So like thriller characters like something like Stephen King, or like I'm trying to think of like pop culture, like Michael Jackson's a little bigger, but it becomes outdated. But yeah, that would just be my recommendation, unless it's for a specific audience or it's targeted for a specific thing. Because what you don't want to happen, I can look through Guinness Book. Another broken. That's a good one. Guinness Book is a good one. Yeah, and I think this is also an opportunity where like you could look up like different references. You could even use, I would always suggest you could use AI for research and look up like what are like 20 different references, what are 20 different pop culture references that people who are that an audience who is into thrillers and into horror stuff would recognize. Another good research suggestion. Yeah, you just want to, what you don't want to happen is you don't want a chance jokes or references being missed by a greater majority of the audience. As long as it's gotten by at least 75%, you're good. So that's why I always try to say with reference stuff, make it as general as possible, unless the story or script is targeted at a specific audience. Let's see. Rob shrugs his shoulders. And it could just be a me thing, right? I could just not know this and other people could. So that's a possibility as well. Oh yeah. Of course, I'm like, when it comes to AI, I always think of using AI for, in the back end of developing. I would never use it for the writing process because like I can write better than AI any day, I feel like, personally. But I think in terms of research, I think it can actually be very strategically used. And I think it really just comes down to asking the right questions. It's great for research purposes. Let's see. Rob shrugs his shoulders. Neither cups are impressed by Sarah's analogy, let alone her historical reference. Let's see. Mr. and Miss. Neither cups. Rob shrugs his shoulders. I would say that this description isn't even necessary. I would say Rob, because you could even give them actions, so that way their actions make this it feel obvious. This is just a little extra that you could that you want to let the actors choose in the way that they respond. Let's see. Mr. and Miss Williams, we truly appreciate your time. Yep, this was all good stuff. You could like, this was totally obvious that clearly they're like, they think Sarah's overreacting, obviously. And then Nick is, look, tell him what you saw, Rob. I mean, this is like so funny. Like now that he's there, nothing. I almost feel like Sarah should like smack Rob or something like that. Like this kind of feels that she's like, now that the cops are there, he's not on her side. I almost feel like based off Sarah's character, it seems like she would be like way more pissed off at Rob now for not being on her side. Sure, but maybe she has arthritis, like oh god. And it's there. I love Rob and Sarah's dynamic in the scene. It's just funny. It's comical. Sarah pulls her out her phone. Here she is. Did you record her when you got home from shopping? We see Rob That's right. I forgot if you had said that Sarah pulled out her phone in that previous scene, but that makes sense. Let's see. Miss Summers' blood-curdling scream. I'm like, how would that not, like, alert somebody? The video then shakes. Miss Summers can be seen entering her house. Seconds later, Miss Summers. So with this, I would almost recommend, Sean, that you cut this out of this section and that you include this at the end of the second video clip. Because if I'm thinking from like a cop's perspective, if they see a video and then they hear a blood-curdling scream from it, I'm going to be like, oh, well, what if she's having a heart attack? We need to go check. Because I think by them hearing like a blood curdling scream, that might be like, okay, well, maybe we should go check. And since they're still not convinced, I would just move this to the end of the second video clip. Awesome. Tell me that's someone who I should not be heard of. And then that actually makes it clearer why they're like, oh, okay, well, clearly we have to go check. So Miss Williams, the pounding, banging over there. Not to mention the shouting, no screaming. Yep, this is all good. This was just like a question I had to myself, and I'm not sure if it matters. Did Nick personally check on this Miss Williams report previously, or is he just being general? Was he the one that was assigned to this case whenever Sarah reported it 100 times over, or is this just something he's aware of, or does he just not want to deal with it? And it's possible I could have missed it, but I think perhaps clarifying that if he's like, oh, and you might have clarified in the last excerpt. I just don't remind. Yes, we found. Okay, cool. So it's part of the plot then. Okay, cool. And I kind of got that sense at the very end since Miss Summers is like kind of watching, so that actually makes a little more sense. Perfect. I would change nothing about that. I think she's an old. Yeah, and I think then here having a blood curdling scream would then cause them to be like, all right, well, now we have to go check it out. And then I imagine Nick cursing under his breath. Tell me that this is normal. Yep. I don't see a problem giving it a look-see again. Thank you, officer. From just a structural point, I would actually cut Sarah's line out and I would just have Billy respond immediately. I don't see a problem giving it a look-see again. Because we just start off with Billy. Hers is just extra right now. We've already clearly shown that she's extra. We'll use that word. She's extra. So I would start with Billy because after she shows the second video, it's like, now let's get to the point and let's move them to the next house. Thank you, Officer Wallace. It's not a problem at all. Yep. All right, we'll go check it out. It does seem like he would be a little bit more pissed off based off his previous demeanor. I'm sorry, a look-see. Unless, is Nick good at holding himself professionally in front of like people or in front of people who aren't like police? Because based off the previous scenes I've seen, I get the sense that he seems like he would just be more pissed off. Kind of feels like he gets pissed off at everything. That's just an observation. I think this is funny. A look-see. I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't even think that's necessary. I would just be like a look-see, really. Because then it gets, I think this look-see thing is funny. And I would say let's like make that like the thing, the look-see thing. Make that like the punch of the joke of this little section. She's doing construction over there. You might want to find out if she has permits. That's fine. Well, they walk away. And that's referencing this. Yeah, and I think by clarifying that reference, you're using the rule of three. So that actually would makes it effective. I think it's just lost on me since I didn't get it. But I think the reference works because you reference it once in the beginning, once in the middle, and once at the end, which is good. Miss Summers' house. I swear the stay keeps getting better and better. Yep. That's funny. They knock, no one's there. Like, this is like, of course, stereotypical. Somehow, like, we know that they're going to go to the house and like she's not going to answer. You know, with this scene, I almost felt like Sean, and this is just like random subjective thing. Oh, let's see. I think he's just bitter at. Okay, okay, that makes sense. But I was gonna say, with this scene, I almost expected there to be a jump scare here for some reason. I might, and especially if we're building suspense. I mean, this is a little bit more of a thriller, but I expected them to be like waiting there and for like a cat to jump out of a bush, or for like a tapping somewhere, something to scare Billy. It kind of seems like Billy. Seems like it would be a good thing to scare Billy. I think Billy needs to be scared. I don't know why I'm sensing that, but my gut's telling me we should scare Billy. Subjective idea though. All right. Because and I think it's because we have this build up here of we're basically cutting back and forth between the officers and then she's inside, and that's creepy. And someone picks out from beyond this. Well, what you would not believe who it is. Yeah. I think from an antagonist standpoint, I would cut this part. I would say less screen time with Miss Summers will build up suspense. So I would say less with her because you do more with showing her as an antagonist in this script. I would say less is more. We already got an introduction to her in the very beginning. She's creepy. And now you just have that scene of she's just like opens a window and she's talking to somebody. And I think that's good. So I would actually cut this portion. Um, watching as the officers walk back to their car, or maybe even just this dialogue, right? She watches, Miss Summers turns away, seemingly talking to someone in the room. Miss Summers picks up from behind the curtain on the second story window. Okay, actually, I see what you're doing. So she's watching them as they're knocking. She talks. She talks to somebody else in the room. You turn back, they're walking to the car. Okay. Actually, I see what you're doing. Let's see. I'm kind of like I'm thinking about what would feel right. Um, I feel like I would cut this down to one piece of dialogue if possible. But I see why you broke it up. I'd have to think about it further, but I just suggest cutting this down to one dialogue. You can scare Billy. Excellent. Woo! I think scaring Billy would actually be good. But I think it seems like a good opportunity. It seems like a missed opportunity to not have a jump scare in this moment, especially because Miss Summers is creepy AF and they're not actually dealing with Miss Summers. They're just dealing with a creepy house. I like that. I think it works both ways, but I agree that the comment doesn't need to be there. Cool. And then this is just the resolution. What it tries to appear past the drapes of the upstairs windows. Let's get out of this rain. I'm with you. And that just references Flojo. And this was good. Yeah, I had no comments on this last part. This is just kind of leading up to that creepy of like her whistling Skip to My Lou. I almost feel like that she could be whistling Skip to My Lou in the first moment that you see her. Yeah, I almost feel like that's an opportunity I feel like she should be whistling that in this earlier moment. And then when they're driving away here in this like last moment, that's when would become like it like the music becomes louder or whatever. But I like that. That was cool. So yeah, that's all that I got for you, my man. I think that was really interesting excerpt. Once again, I want to know more. I want to like see how like they're gonna take down this like old lady. She's she's just an old lady. Like, how is she going to be a threat to them during a face-off? But clearly, she has to. It's going to have to follow a serial killer arc, and she's clearly not going to be caught for a while, or she has to be working with someone. One of the two. Creepy old lady, man. What a good antagonist. Awesome. That's all that I got for you, Sean. Thanks for submitting it. I'm really enjoying kind of working through the script, and we're kind of going like piece by piece. So it's cool. Eager to see when it makes its way onto a screen. All right. That was perfecto. So let me let's see. So as I change screens on my end, bear with me just a second. Oh, of course, Sean. And tell Robin once again, both of you, thanks for supporting the community. Thanks for dropping by, and I'm glad that you guys are getting value out of these. Fun writing. Keep writing. Write more. All right, what do we got next? So the next one I got is all right. So it looks like Isabella. I got you next over here. Isabella Lovespell Murders was the next one up. The Lovespell Murders excerpt. Miss Isabella. I know I saw you earlier in the stream. Isabella. With I know you're waiting here with the bells and whistles on. All right. So let me get yours pulled up. Excellent. And let's see, I want to say that I had yours as, yours is a Word document. Perfect. All right. And then let's see, bear with me as I get this set up on my screen. I got that. All right, beautiful. And I am all set up over here. So we got up next for Isabella's The Lovespell Murders. So if you've been following along over some of our previous reading and critique shows, you've been tuning along in some of Isabella's excerpts. We've had some fun stuff. We got some murders going on. We got some Greek mythology thrown in here. We got a little bit of time traveling. We got some type of like chaos magic. There's some really interesting things going on in this world. And we have some very fun character development. So I'm eager to see what we have this time. I think that last excerpt I've read of yours was a little bit more lighthearted. Yes. So let's see what we got for today. It looks like Sean's throwing up a reference. Just so you know, the lyrics are a hidden hint too. Lost my partner. What do I do? Lost my skip to my. That's actually really funny, Sean. I didn't even catch that. That's actually really funny. Yeah. Oh my god, that's funny. I would like. You probably clarify it at some point in your script, but I would like clarify that because that's funny. It's kind of creepy too. That'll be creepy when they like actually have to go up against creepy Miss Summers with the butcher knife and skinning people alive. God, no, thank you. It's just creepy. That is not somebody that I want to go up against. Creepy old lady. Okay. So we are all set. So you can see my screen. I got the Lovespell Murders by Miss Isabella Jones. So 20 minutes up on the clock. All right. Can you explain to my partner what you told me on the phone? About the commotion in Ricky's apartment. Perry ran his hand through his uncombed hair. Ricky's neighbor, Barbara, Barbara Collins, had called as the sun crested the eastern horizon, but what came through the receiver was jumbled. Barbara had ranted about a creaking and wailing, and something about a stampede of buffalo all come from Ricky's apartment. It's not his apartment, Barbara insisted with a hint of exasperation. She was in the same pink chenille housecoat, the rollers still locked into her graying hair, but she wore a tissue between her fingers. It's that other fellow's Jason Marlborough, but when Jason went to Europe for a semester, he let it out to Ricky. Now, Ricky's had some wild parties, made a racket now and again, but I never thought it was anything to call you folks about. Alara closed her eyes and rolled her head back, trying to work the kink out of her neck. But Ricky's gone, I tell you, and there shouldn't have been any cavorting with the opposite sex going on in there, she said. Half an hour ago, I heard something loud go thump, and so I went to the door and I listened. I thought Ricky was getting robbed, but I heard gurgling and this moaning, and then that stampede I told you about, then nothing. So I called you on account of I told you he was gone, but he wasn't, and then I do know. I got a real bad feeling. You think he's been murdered? Alara opened her eyes and looked at the woman. You called us because you heard somebody having rowdy sex, and then you had a bad feeling about it. Perry shot his partner a narrowed-eyed gaze. I forgot how pleasant you were before coffee. No, Barbara said and crossed her arms. I called you because I told you the apartment was empty, and it ain't. Do we need to wait for the warrant now? Alara asked her partner, or can we check the place out? Chief says no. If we got a reason to suspect, Ricky's got some splaining to do, Perry said. Let's get the ticker tape and have ourselves a look-see behind the curtain. Young man, Barbara interrupted, tapping her foot like it was an agitated cat's tail against a cheerful welcome mat. I have lost count of the number of cultural references and metaphors you have slaughtered. Perry looked at her and smiled. Last time I checked, slaughtered metaphors aren't a criminal activity. Waking a detective up at the crack of dawn and wasting the police department's time, on the other hand. Somebody was in that apartment as of half an hour ago, the neighbor said. Somebody doing seemly things. Well, it's quiet now. Are you sure it wasn't the leaseholder? That Jason guy? I'm friends with Jason on my face. I checked in on him last night. According to a few blurry photos, he was pouring shots down his throat in between bullfights in Spain. From the look of it, he couldn't have gone on a plane if he had been propped up with a stick. I always root for the bull, said Alara. Let's get the door, Buster. I can see why you'd root for the bull, Barry said. You're not so big on subtle. He took a small package from his pants pocket. Me, I like subtle. Here's one for you, Alara said as she waited for Perry to pick Ricky's locked door. A man on a business trip in Mexico. After a long day of touring a tequila distillery, he goes to the cantina next to his hotel and orders the mountain oysters. The waiter brings out a plate with the largest pair of oysters he's ever seen. He devours them. The next day, he goes back and orders another plate. Again, a pair of bulging oysters. How do you find such large ones? He asks, dabbing a bit of juice from his beard. The waiter says, "We are lucky to get the bull after the bullfight." The last day of his business trip in Mexico, he decides to go to the cantina. He orders as usual, but is disappointed when they bring him out a pair of tiny mountain oysters. He slurps them down anyway, but asks, "What happened? Why are they so small?" "Senor, the bull doesn't always lose," Perry said, the door unlatched. "Never let me have any fun," Alara said. "I'm from California," Perry said. "My nanny told me that joke." You had a nanny? Perry shrugged. "You didn't?" The door swung open with a large creak. Alara and Perry looked in. Then Alara quickly slammed it shut. She drew her weapon and put a finger to her lips. "What's going on?" Barbara demanded as she pulled her pink housecoat around her thin shoulders. Alara nodded to Barbara. Perry understood. "Ma'am, come with me. We're going to step outside and wait for an officer to take your official statement," Perry said. "Is there anybody else in this building?" "There's a loft apartment upstairs," Barbara said, "but it's empty." He took the woman gently by the arm and led her to the door. "Do you have a phone number for Jason? For the landlord?" "Well, yes. What happened?" she asked, her voice fading as they made their way out the Victorians' front door. In a few minutes, the scream of sirens began to circle the murder scene. Alara vaulted the door open and stepped inside. Alara vaulted the door open and stepped inside, raised the gun, and swept the room with it. There was nobody alive in the apartment. She reholstered the weapon, leaned against the door's threshold to steady herself, and looked at the bed. Ricky lay like the other victim, his chest and rib cage open, his blood splattered all over the walls, down the bed, still dripping in slow, dense drops onto the floor. Beside him looked like bunches of sticks bound together with something natural, like vine. She looked closer, and it occurred to her that it might be a scarecrow laying beside Ricky. Ooh. It was wearing a Kansas City Chiefs cap. Alara felt her legs start to flutter and twitch like a butterfly struggling to break free of its cocoon. The nerves in her thighs, calves, down to her toes felt like they were sparking with electricity. She stumbled, trying not to move anything in the room, and crouched until the pain and the lightheartedness that it brought with it subsided. When she stood up, her legs shivered but didn't falter. She stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her. Nice. End scene. Once again, really good. Another really cool little excerpt. With each of these excerpts, I'm like, now I really want to know, like, who is this killer? And some of these like murder scenes are very like creepy, gruesome, and just very strange. So like we have Ricky, his chest and rib cage open. So clearly his body's been open. His blood splattered all over the walls. So clearly the room's a bloody mess. Beside him looked like bunches of sticks bound together with something natural like vine. So Ricky's rib cage is splayed open. The room splattered in blood. Next to him is basically a vine thing that kind of looks like a scarecrow. I kind of get like one of those like effigy doll type of things, like a large effigy doll kind of, wearing a Kansas City Chiefs cap. Great suspense. Great red herring. Clearly that's probably going to lead them to the next thing, but very, very clever. I like that. Let's see. At the first murder scene, the murderer painted a figure next to the victim. Cool. All right. So that's like the serial killer's MO basically. Fun. I like that. I love that. Serial killers always having some type of like thing or MO is very, very cool. The Lovespell murders. I feel like I'm like getting onto the point of asking myself why it's called the Lovespell murders. And I feel like I'm going to get there by the next murder. So that's actually really cool. You don't need to tell me. I'm curious. I'm intrigued. But all right. So let's hop back to the beginning. Barbara was just funny. She's like, her character is just very clear in that she's like that old lady with the rollers who kind of has all the free time in the world, probably watches people, and she uses her my face profile a lot. So nice touch, by the way. So I think that was clever. Once again, we have another kind of cop duo, similar to Sean, what you had in your script with a cop duo dealing with a crazy police request. I thought that was kind of funny. Let's see, Colin, Barbara rented about a stampede of buffalo. So this is good. I was highlighting this because this is just good description. A stampede of buffalo. That's nice. I think the description's good. Setup's really, really good here. She worried a tissue. I wasn't sure if you could use worried in that manner, but I think you might. Can you use worried as a verb? Worried. She worried, not as a verb, as an action. She like. She worried a tissue between her fingers. So this was just like a grammatical point. You've heard it before. Okay. Maybe I might have heard it before. She worried a tissue between her fingers. But I'm like, worried definition. She worried a tissue between her fingers. She like anxiously. I kind of go back and forth. I think that's just a subjective one. She worried. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I go back and forth on this word for some reason. Like she worried. Like I could see where you're going with it, and especially if you've seen it before, then it's been done. But I think from like a description standpoint, it's not clear to me because worried is to worry, to be anxious, to be concerned. So then putting that into an action of, but she concerned a tissue between her fingers. Yeah, I would just suggest replacing it with another word choice just to make it clearer. But this is a subjective one on my part. Yep, perfect. That works. She anxiously something to tissue. Yep. Yeah, and the roller's still up to her, but she anxiously rolled a tissue between her fingers. I think that would just make it clearer, in all honesty. And if there's one thing that I always say, it's make it as easy to read as possible. It's that other fellow's Jason Marlborough. She was in the same pink. Is Marlboro really his last name? So like the only thing is when you use Marlboro, you're going to make people think of cigarettes and you're going to make them think of nicotine and tobacco. If that is your intent, great work. Keep it up. If not, consider replacing the last name because Marlboro will make people think of the Marlboro Man. It's a little outdated since cigarette culture, nicotine culture isn't as predominant, but that's what that made me think of when I hear Marlboro. Let's see. I like all this action. The dialogue is fun. The only thing is for setting up the scene as they're sitting down, where is this action with Perry and Alara talking to Barbara? Where's this taking place? I like get that they're at the apartment. Are they like just standing in the hallway and talking? Or are they like sitting at Barbara's like table? Is Barbara like making a cup of tea? Is she like doing her hair? I would just add like a line of description somewhere that clarifies where in the present moment this conversation is happening. Other than that, they're somewhere in the building. And you could even do it through some action of like Perry asked a question. Barbara said this as she like does her rollers and hands them a cup of tea or something easy like that. I heard somebody goes to the coffee shop and names characters after drink orders. Thanks, Thomas Smith. You're about to die to form the plot. That's kind of funny. His characters after drink orders. I've seen that done before too. I've definitely, especially having worked in coffee shops for so long, I've definitely seen that done. They visited her yesterday when they were looking for Ricky and stayed out in the hallway. So I need to reference. Yeah. I would just clarify that. Let's see. And then let's go back. So they're talking. The conversation itself is fine. It's interesting. Barbara's clearly has a lot to say, and it's funny. Alara opened her eyes and looked at the woman. You called us. This is funny. Alara's like clearly like really GTFO. Clearly they don't think that. They think she's being extra. I would, in this scene right here, when Alara responds, reword the dialogue to make Alara's dialogue come across as meaner. Perry's response, I forgot how pleasant you were before coffee. Like, I understand why he's saying that, but right now it's not as obvious. Like, and looked at the woman, like, I would just use more direct language. Like, clearly she's upset, but have her use more direct language to warrant him saying how he forgets how pleasant she was. Let's see. For example, you called us because you heard somebody having rowdy sex and then you had a bad feeling about it. Maybe like Lara would like make some sort of joke or some sort of like ironic joke because you heard somebody having sex and then you had a bad feeling about it. Should we call the next time you hear a mouse running around as well? Or even saying like, oh, it's a federal, it's what is it? It's a crime to call the police illegally, right? Madam, or you can even have her call her a name or just something. You could do any number of things. Use something to make Alara sound meaner in this moment to warrant Perry's response. Oh, hey, what's up, Comet? Welcome to the stream, my friend. We're just doing some live readings and critiques. Come chill out and feel free to throw up any comments if you feel like anything stands out to you, my friend. We do live readings and critiques every Saturday. Let's see. Is it too mean to ask her if she's jealous? Actually, that would be perfect. No, I mean, yes, it would be too mean, but I think that would warrant this response. Just make sure that however Barbara responds to it, either what Alara says has to go over Barbara's head, or Barbara has to respond to it in a way that's defensive for it to feel realistic. But I actually think that would be perfect. In all honesty, that's like the perfect one. But also she hasn't had any. Yeah, and I think it's good referencing the coffee. It just the mean part has to be clear. No, Barbara said and crossed her arms. I think it's actually funny that she hasn't had her coffee. And that Alara's thing is that like she needs coffee. I hope you reference that more throughout the story. If Alara like needs her coffee to actually like be active in the day. Like the thing of like if she has like the empty coffee cup and she's like, the day's ruined. There's no more coffee. Or she goes to like the empty coffee pot or something like that. I hope there's more references to that if that's a thing for her. Cool. Okay, cool. Thinking the same thing. Good job. Let's see. Do we need to wait for the warrant now? Or can we check? The chief says no. So this is good. Young man, Barbara tapping her foot like an. I have lost count of the number of cultural references and metaphors you have slaughtered. That's funny. That's perfect. Let's see, young man with her reference to the agitated cat's tail. So tapping her phallic agitated cat's tail. So this is great description, by the way, really great description. against the cheers. So that's great description. My only thing is with this quote, I have lost count to the number of cultural references and metaphors you have slaughtered. It doesn't, so based off this conversation, it doesn't sound like Perry's slaughtered too many cultural references, or at least I missed it. So for this comment to make sense, Barbara would have to either comment or you would just have to highlight each of the times that he's like making a reference or a metaphor that's being slaughtered. And I think his response, like, once again, this is perfect. Perfect response to this moment. And I understand where you're going for here, but I didn't see the references earlier in the conversation. So I would just highlight them, whether like Perry says something and then she's like, oh, like the first time she's like, oh, well, I would disagree. And then the second time her being like a little bit more like, oh, you know what, are you really as references the type of thing or something. You just need some type of dialogue or action that highlights these Perry doing this, because right now it's lost on me. Yep. I think that would be a good strategy. The references are vintage. I mean, you can make the references vintage. You just have to highlight them and make them more impactful. So that way it's clear why she says that. And especially with this time frame in this world, it actually seems like it probably fits with this world more so. That's good. Someone's in the apartment. Just clarify this. Was this her speaking? Barbara? This was Barbara speaking, right? I know you were probably just trying to use something so that way it wasn't Barbara said again, but this made me think that another random neighbor said something. That just confused me for a second. Somebody was in the apartment as of half an hour ago. Was there a neighbor who just stepped out of their door and are now talking to them? Yeah, that was Barbara. Okay, cool. I would just say Barbara said, or even just she said. Because this makes me think that another neighbor stepped out the door, just for clarification. Yes, I love everyone knows this is MySpace reference. Like, that's funny. According to he was pouring shots in his throat. This is great. Clearly, she stalks my face. That's perfect. I always root for the bull. And I think this is clever because there's a bull. Clearly, we know that the bull reference in the story. With this, so with her story, a man is on a business trip. He goes to Cantina and orders the mountain. I like to get the bull. I'm just like rereading this joke because I want to make sure that the joke makes sense. Last to the. Senor, the bull doesn't always lose. I think for some reason, like the joke was lost on me, and I don't know why. And I thought it was maybe because I was doing it as a live reading. I always root for the bull. He couldn't have gone on a plane if he had been propped up with a stick. I always root for the bull. Let's get the door. I can see why you'd root for the bull. Gotcha. Okay, that totally makes sense with the bull. That makes sense by you saying this. When the bull doesn't lose, the human does. That's perfect. Pair of bulging oysters. How do you find such large ones? He asks. The waiter says, "We are lucky to get the bull after the bullfight." Okay, I get that joke a little bit more, but I'm like asking myself, like, what does a bull have to do with oysters? Yeah, I think so too. I think regardless of the joke, I think you should make it like a shorter like joke. And if anything, because you're building up suspense, I would actually make it a scary joke. because like we're about to go into like a graphic scene next. So I would do something that builds up the suspense. Right now you're using this moment to build up the character development. I would do character development as an undertone and do some sort of joke or something, some story joke that builds up the suspense in the moment. Look up mountain noise. Oh, all right. I'll do that. I'll do it after the stream. Oh. You never let me have any fun. I think this, like, once again, and this is the third time in this excerpt, Perry's response is perfect. Just needs a little bit more clarification. Let's see what's going on. Barbara demanded. This is funny. Barbara. Oh God, Barbara's funny. I would. So this is just a recommendation. The way that they find the scene laid out, I would actually reference. I would. The moment that they first open the door. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. So the moment that first opens the door, when they kick open the door up here, before Barbara comes up, before we get that comedic relief again, the nanny thing is fine. The door swings open. The scene needs to be described right here. I mean, like right now, you're kind of being like, shut it, keep it closed, because you're doing it to build up suspense. Then Alara quickly slammed it shut. She drew a weapon and put her finger to lips. What's going on? I mean, the doors with Alara and Perry looked in. Then Alara quickly slammed it shut. No, I mean, I see what you're doing. You're doing it to build up suspense. And then she comes in. Actually, Alara Perry understood. You're taking her out. I see, because they look and then Barbara comes, they slam, and then they need to wait for reinforcements before they can look. Splattered red everywhere. Oh my God. that's dark, but that's good. That's good for this. I'll let to the door open. Yeah, I mean, I think if I was thinking of this scene, Isabella, I get why you're building up the suspense for having her keep the door, look in, shut it, Barbara comes in. But because the amount of time between them closing the door and them actually exploring it is so short, I think the suspense is kind of besides the point. I think it would actually be more effective if you have Alara open the door, be like, oh shit, something's up. Maybe them exploring the room and seeing the scene. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, because it almost feels like it would be more impactful if like they open the door and go straight to the punch. Like it feels like you should go straight to the punch of like she opens the door not expecting it and bloody scene of his gut is ripped open, the thing, and it's like, or maybe even if it was like a 2-bedroom apartment, maybe they're being like, oh, the first room is like covered in blood leading into the other room, but just something. It feels like when she opens the door, like you do it as an aside of her shutting the door as an unintentional, like, oh, there's a suspense. But I feel like it would be more impactful if you do something like that immediately. By doing it after the sirens shows up, it kind of diminishes the effect. That might be a little subjective on my part, but it feels like that might just make it more impactful. Yep. That's exactly my point. 100%. You'd make it more impactful like that. Get to that gut, the gut torn open and the blood scene faster. And you'll that way you'll keep your reader engaged, because you go straight from the funny Barbara bit to the story bit, and then you want to go to the the murder scene and you want to get there quickly. You don't want to draw it out. If it was going to be taking place in like the next chapter, that'd be different. But since it's right there, just like get to it would be my suggestion. Awesome. And I think, I mean, the rest of what you had, so like the way she sees it, like the layout of it, like this is perfect. The description, perfect. The way she responds to it, perfect. This is great. And this just leaves us on like a cliffhanger for the next section. But like this was all that in itself. Keep all that. That was great. Staccato. Yeah, it's got to be timing. Yep. Exactly. A musical reference, my friend. That I totally get that. Perfect. And that's all that I got for you. Once again, another really entertaining excerpt. Really entertaining. I am like some of the previous stories, Isabella, I am enthralled and captured and wanting to just know more of this story. And I want to know that some of these like Greek mythological, like this antagonist, this like serial killer. What I like about your storytelling is you're good at using language to paint a picture, and you've created this kind of like noir type world, and it's fun. So you're doing a really good job with that. All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of fun to read through. Okay. So I'm going to hop straight into my next one. All right. So let me get this out of the way as I queue up. Let's see who I got on deck. Okay. So I got, let's see. It looks like I got, all right. It looks like I have Remy. It looks like I got you on deck here for number 5, Remy Salazar, the Desolation. All right. So I got you here, Remy. I want to hop straight into your story. Because I went over a little longer on some of these critiques, but it's like I want to make sure that you're reading, that you get value out of your reading, and you get value out of the critiques and comments. So Remy, if you're here in the stream, just say I. Let me know that you're here in the stream. Drop a comment as I pull your stuff up. Perfect. Woo! What's up? All right, Remy in the house. Wonderful. So I'm pulling that up. Excellent. And let's see. Well, I set yours up. Let's see. What do I want to do? Let me throw up a I'm like thinking of a bit now. That's not what I want to say. Let me do a plug real fast. So, are you in need of a professional editor? I actually have my own company called The Creative Ghost, where I offer ghostwriting services, editing services, and creative writing coaching services. So, whether you're needing your story to be edited, or whether you're just needing an accountability partner or inspiration, you should check me out as I pull up the screen. Perfect. So this is the website. You should check it out. I offer services of all type. This is the web page. Done a lot of work into it. Hopefully it's looking more and more professional. I go into services and pricing. As you've seen, I do editing services and a bunch of other stuff. So you should go check it out at thecreativeghost.com. And I promise it will be a great experience. And I love helping writers improve. So check out The Creative Ghost today. All right. So I had to make sure to plug my website, and wonderful. And once again, if you have more questions about like any of like the writing, editing, or coaching services, always feel free to send a message if you want to know more about what I do, like rates, what the process looks like. And yeah, let's chat. All right. So let me pull up the Desolation. Remy, I got you over here. Oh, that's not what I want. Oh. All right, and I got the timer and everything all reset. All right, and you are all set up over here. All right, Remy. So we have an excerpt. First off, like, thank you for reaching out. And I'm glad that we're able to get. We have your story here. So let's see. So you gave me a name pronunciation guide, which super, super, very, very helpful. I'm like, I probably should have scanned it a little bit more to see which characters I would actually be speaking of. Looks like Lorcan. I'm seeing if there's any specific character pronunciations. In the first section, I see Alan Netza. So that way I don't have to go back and forth. I love that you include a pronunciation guide. I think it makes it really easy to be both a writer or a reader by clarifying names, especially when you have different pronunciations. Okay, so here we go. So we got, all right, the Desolation. And it looks like we get to start at the beginning. All right. The Desolation, Chapter 1. My father's loud steps thrummed from the floor below as he frantically tried to finish the morning chores. I could hear Lorcan's indistinct murmurs drifting up the stairwell as he went over. Un momento. There we go. How to get that pulled over. All right. One more time. I'm going to reset that. Okay. My father's loud steps thrummed from the floor below as he frantically tried to finish the morning chores. I could hear Lorcan's indistinct murmurs drifting up the stairwell as he went over a checklist. The day was here, and the entire house was in chaos. I descended the stairs and found my mother fussing over Lorcan in the middle of the living room. He had changed into a new, crisp white tunic that she just finished sewing from him earlier in the week. It was tailor fit to his tall, sturdy frame and clearly meant for a special occasion. In the early morning light, he almost looked like a new person. He combed his fingers through his cropped brown hair until he noticed us all staring. He fidgeted under a collective gaze, face going stern. Would you all stop looking at me that way? He grumbled, voice gruff. I chuckled. You best get used to it, Lorcan. Soon the whole village will be staring at you. That earned me a glare, and my chuckle bloomed into a full-fledged laugh. Ein, let me check that pronunciation. Anya. Perfect. Anya, leave your brother alone, Ma chided as she strode over to me. You look nice, dear, she said, but her words hung in the air. As I twisted the hem of my nicest dress around my fingers, I could feel the butt coming. All except your hair, she continued with a sigh. Ah, there it was. I grimaced as she started tugging on my messy auburn hair, trying to convince it to lie flat against my scalp. You cut it so short. It may be shorter than Lorcan's now. We can't do anything with it like this. It was so much easier to hide the cowlicks when it was longer. Ma, I already told you. I like it like this. The heat doesn't get me as much. Besides, today is about Lorcan. Let's not start this again. She nodded, apparently convinced that no matter how hard she tugged, I was still going to look like myself. You are right, of course. It's Lorcan's big day, I sighed in relief, glad she had taken the bait. Which reminds me, we should go soon. Dear, are you ready? She asked, turning her attention to Da, who was proudly straightening out the collar of Lorcan's tie. I think so. He looked seriously at Lorcan. Are you ready, son? Lorcan stood a little straighter and nodded his head once. He looked as if he had never been more sure of anything. He probably hadn't. Da patted him on the shoulder, eyes glistening with pride. Then we should go. I'm sure the elders are ready for you by now. As a family, we exited the enormous, long-dead tree we had carved our home into. The sun overhead bore down, and my ears took a moment to adjust before I was being ushered along by my mother. Together, we walked through what had once been a small forest, but had since become a village by the name of Olanatsa. A breeze rattled the brittle branches of the trees that towered overhead as we passed our neighbors' homes. Our feet caused dust to rise with each step, covering our leather boots. Don't dally, Ma warned as we made our way to the clearing in the center of the village. We were among the last to arrive in the clearing, fashionably late, so to speak, though no one would hold it against us. Today was about Lorcan, and if he needed a little extra time to get ready, his friends, family, and community would happily oblige him with that. As they noticed our presence, the people of Olanatsa began making themselves comfortable at the dining tables that filled the clearing. They were clearly excited for the event to start. Once the crowd dispersed into their seating for the occasion, an elderly gentleman with an almost regal air about him made his way from the front to us. Good morning, Lorcan, greeted Elder Dermud as he stopped in front of us. He smiled kindly, eyes sparkling in that youthful way he had, despite being the oldest member of our clan and head elder. Are you excited about your coming of age ceremony? A series of emotions played across Lorcan's face so quickly that I would have missed it if I hadn't grown up with him. As it was, he squared his broad shoulders and nodded. I suppose that's one way to put it, he answered, a hint of a wry smile on his lips. Elder Dermund smiled in kind. Wonderful. If you follow me to the front, we'll get started. Da patted Lorcan on the shoulder, and Lorcan nodded, ready to face his future. He followed Elder Dermud to the long table in the front, where the Council of Elders presided over the clan. Drums played low in the background, and the clan murmured, excitedly gossiping amongst themselves as they watched Lorcan walk toward the 9 waiting elders, head held high. Once everyone was where they should be, Elder Dermud raised a hand, effectively shushing the crowd. Now only the quiet roll of hand drums thrummed, somehow amplifying his sure and steady voice as he spoke. We are here today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Lorcan's birth and the day he finally comes of age. We have all watched him grow and mature into the fine man you see before you today. Now, we watch as he takes the next step down the path of his journey, becoming one with the clan in his own right as his own individual. He paused, turning from the crowd to Lorcan. Lorcan, I believe you have chosen the career path of hunter. Is that correct? Lorcan nodded. Then I will step aside and let the head of the hunters take over from this point forward. He bowed his head to Lorcan and returned to the elders' table. As Elder Diamond sat, one of the 9 elders rose to his feet. He was old and riddled with scars, but his gaze had lost none of his sharp focus. As he stood before Lorcan, he turned those intense eyes to him, raking over Lorcan's frame, as if looking for weakness or signs of doubt. Lorcan never wavered an inch. The harsh old man nodded, apparently finding what he was looking for. He clasped his leathery hands behind his back and confronted my brother. Hunting is a dangerous career path. We travel outside of the safety of the village and into the wastes. You must be prepared to face all manner of beasts, not to mention the elements. We are often gone for days, possibly weeks at a time. It is an important role for the people of Olenatsa. We provide them with the food that they eat, all while acting as the first line of defense from the things beyond our walls. It is a noble path, but not for the faint of heart or the undedicated. Are you sure that this is the life you choose? He asked, eyeing Lorcan seriously. It was the moment of truth. Lorcan stood, sure and proud as he nodded. I am. The elder hunter let out a grunt and nodded. He turned to the elder's table where a small bowl and a beautifully sculpted clay goblet waited. He reached for the bowl, I knew to be filled with red dye. He dipped his thumb in and placed it against Lorcan's forehead, leaving a red stain, marking him as a hunter. The drums grew louder. He turned back to the table and, setting down the bowl, reached for the goblet. He then turned to Lorcan and held out the vessel, containing a strong ceremonial alcohol, only used for these sorts of things. Now drink and join our ranks. Lorcan took the goblet and held it up so that Olma, our goddess, may bless him and his future through his act, then brought it to his lips, draining it in one go. The drums reached a great crescendo, and the crowd cheered. Woo! My big brother was officially a hunter. I couldn't be prouder. Afterward, there was a celebration, as there always was with these things. The entire clan stayed in the clearing, eating a large lunch of roasted meats and hearty root vegetables as we talked, laughed, and celebrated my brother on his day. I weaved through happy young ones, running and playing around the tables, making my way back to the table where my family sat with plates full of food. Music continued to swell in the air, strings and wooden flutes now accompanying the drums. Though the party was for Lorcan, he stayed close to her family while we ate. Friends and a variety of members of the community came to congratulate him, which he accepted as graciously as possible for a practical, stoic man like Lorcan. Da looked as though he might burst with pride each time someone spoke to him, congratulating him on his son becoming a man. Ma did her best to hide her tears over the fact that her baby was grown. As people finished eating, they got up from their tables. It was a simple thing to find your way around the clearing and mingle. Some folks would talk in large circles, laughing so loudly I could hear it all the way from where we sat. Others danced to the jaunty folk music that was being played. Old man Tug, for one, looked at least 10 years younger with his fiddle in hand. He was always so full of life when he played, face lighting up as the bow did his bidding. Young ones played, running and laughing through the crowd, some trying to dance along with the adults. With all the festivities, no one complained about the scorching sun, now at its zenith, beating down on them from overhead. I pulled up my shawl a little more to protect the pale skin of my neck. Daw took one look at Ma with tears in her eyes and went soft. Actually, I'm going to end the reading there because I want to make sure I have enough time. How's the drink? I've never tried it. So the reason I was looking ahead was because I was curious to know what the plot, where the plot's going. Or just not where the plot. I want to know where the first like suspense and obstacles coming out, because you've done a really good job of setting up like this world, this coming of age ceremony, and it feels like a really good setup for this like backdrop of like I feel like something crazy is about to happen. Like it literally feels like something's about to go down, and I was just very curious. True. So it's kind of about him then becoming a hunter. All the time you're actually going to add a point. Okay. So it looks like it's about that he's become a hunter, and then it's going to be her journey. Yeah. So I was just curious, but you did a good job of setting up the story. The world is actually very clear. I would say hands down, the world building in this part is very, very strong. Really, really great world building. I feel like we're in this like village where ceremonies are very important. You set up this like council of elders, which is clearly they're like the decision makers of the group. And let's see. So the story is called The Desolation, which tells me that they've referenced the wastes. So it happens in chapter 2. Okay, perfect. So I had a feeling. So that tells me then that a lot of this story is probably going to take place either in the journey throughout this world, or something's going to happen to the village. One of the two. It could go either direction. That's just me guessing. But from the beginning setup of the story, first off, I love the name guide. I like realized afterwards I should have just put this up on a different screen. I was curious on Taigi. Tag was Taigi. Taigi. Deer Mud. So Deer Mud. Deer Mud. I got his name sometimes. I did. Lorcan was fine. Anya was fine. Yeah, interesting. Cool. All right. So let's see. In terms of the story itself, yeah, you did a good job of like setting up the family. It's a very like normal setup. The stairs from my mother. So it's all about so they're really setting up for the name day with the brothers, like he's becoming a man, which is cool. This is a recommendation. So with the beginning of the chapter, unless you have a prologue for the story, I would recommend doing some type of world setup or some sort of reference, even if it's just with her, to pull the reader into the story immediately. With books, we have to pull readers in the first like page as like a hook, because you don't want a chance, like let's say you're like showing the story, you don't want a chance a reader not getting engaged immediately. And I'm actually very intrigued by this world. I think it would almost be beneficial to have the main character, even if it's like a slight reference, like the waste or something just about the world, something that's very like mundane. I think it could be very beneficial to have a hook, because right now the hook is the brother's name day and the brother getting dressed, but it doesn't feel like crazy or it doesn't feel like big, and you learn more about it once you're a couple pages in. But I always like to tell this with readers, like do something that hooks them in the first paragraph. But that's just a subjective recommendation, especially as you're working on your story and you want to get people engaged in it immediately. I always like to either hook people in with action, some type of world building, or something that feels like something that feels new. Because right now it's them, they're basically getting ready. They're getting him ready, which is interesting, but it's not crazy. Let's see, there's a pandemic that hits the village. It gets named The Desolation. The story is her coming of age and finding herself. And okay, that's crazy. Okay. Follows hero's tale. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. The story is her coming of age and finding herself in the midst of tragedy. Okay. I like that. That's actually really cool. So with that being the case, then since she's the protagonist, I would almost start out with some type of like interiority for her, or maybe her referencing, because you're probably going to have obstacles that she's going to have to overcome through her character journey, like finish the morning chores. Let's see, follows her. Remy had the idea in 2019. No, oh, that's so cool. That's so incredible. I think when we've been working on our stories for years, it feels so impactful, so incredible, and so engaging when we're able to work on it over time. And then when we get it to a point when either it's ready to be edited, it's ready to be published, it feels so rewarding. So I think that's absolutely incredible. And I'm actually like, I hope that you get you get it to a point where it's able to be published. I think that's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Amanda. And also thanks for stopping by the stream. Let's see. So yeah, so that was just a recommendation, maybe some type of character development for her, because then if the story is about her, then I would want her, your reader to be pulled into her like in the first paragraph. Even if they're not like fully invested, I want them to have some type of hook about her, since that's who we want to get to. But that's just personal recommendation. Let's see. All right, let's get into it. Most of this name day stuff or the setup is good. On his fingers, there's cropped brown hair. He fidgeted. Yeah, this is fun with the family is good. Their relationship is fun. Let's see. The reason I set up this way was to show her indecision in her path. Gotcha. Okay. So then essentially you want it. Okay. So then essentially it's about her indecision. Okay. It ends with her name day. So I want it to come. Yeah, no. And I mean, that's perfect. So then if her thing is really about indecision, it's about coming of age, then a really easy hook would be like, what is something like, it doesn't even have to be something that's like fully related to her story. What is something that she's like being indecisive about in the very beginning? Now, I know you have her do the hair. You have her, the hair thing with the maw is an indecisive thing. And I get that. That actually makes a little bit more sense since that's her character journey. What if in the first paragraph you set up with her like already fussing with her hair, right? Or if you're already like, or maybe like the way that she's like, my hair looks perfect. Like she's fussing with her hair, but like she already knows the mom's going to think it's stupid. Something like that. Because that actually makes sense why you're doing it with the hair thing. Or even referencing something else that is like, what is something else that she's indecisive about? Or what is something that makes her think about indecision? Because if that's the thing, then you want to think about in a story, what is the opening moment and what is the closing moment? So the closing moment is she is decisive and she believes in herself and she's matured, perfect. Then the opening moment has to be something where she's completely indecisive. So then maybe even her thinking or some type of description or some interiority that shows her being as indecisive as possible. So that just an idea, but I also don't know the character well enough to be able to suggest something that would pertain to her. But that, yeah, I think that's something I would think about, so that way you can pull your readers in immediately. Let's see. I actually like the hair bit. The hair bit with the mom is interesting because you can clearly tell that she likes her hair the way it is. And you do a good point. So I highlighted this. I grimaced she started tugging on my messy auburn hair, trying to, and like, this is good. So this is a really clear description about her hair. And that's interesting. I like that. I think with the description, the only other thing I want with her is I want a little bit more description about her as well. So like, I like that as I twist the hem of my nice, she's dressed, she has hair, she has this like very messy auburn hair that she likes. I mean, that can be fine. I think so. Yeah, because you've set him up as like the stoic brother who's about to become a man. As they're basically setting up his tie and face. Yeah, I mean that actually makes sense. I'm like picturing dress, young girl. You know what? I don't have a sense. That's what I don't have a sense is I don't have a sense of age. That's what I'm missing right now. That's why I'm having a hard time. Unless I missed it. I could have missed it. The day was here because like it's assumed. So he's becoming a man. So then it's assumed that he's probably like a teenager, young teen. But because like this is a specific world, I don't know what the age is when they become a man. I'm assuming it's teenager, but I don't have a sense of her age. So I think I might just add that somewhere so that way I can get a better picture of like, so is she like preteen, like 10 to 11 years old? Or is she like late teen? Is that in this world? Is she like 16, 17 years old? Her age is where you stop. She's 16. He's gotcha. Okay. That totally makes sense. So it kind of explores that a little bit. Okay. That's cool. Awesome. Then I'm glad that I was picking up then on what you were actually about to hop into, which was you were literally about to touch upon their ages. That's awesome. And for special occasion. Yeah, and I think like if with that the case, since it sounds like you probably go into more her interiority after, um, it's probably not too important in this early section then, since the focus is more on the brother. Um, yeah, that's fine. The brother's the more set up. And especially since no, that's subjective. His age isn't too important. So you go through the whole name day ceremony. I would actually almost recommend setting up his age that he's 20 before the name day ceremony. You don't even have to say like, oh, he's 20 years old, but I think because you want to paint the picture, you just want it to be clear of the ceremony itself that he's older. My image of them before, like without you even saying something, without you even saying their ages, my image of them was that they were like preteens and that like coming of age ceremony as like a 12 to 15 year old. But you did reference him being a man, and I think because there's that coming of age, like at least like in our society, coming of age could be like what's 13, 14, anywhere between 13, 14, 15, all the way to like 20 to 23. So that'd be my reference, at least for him before the ceremony. So that way that's kind of clear. Or even if one of the elders mentions it as part of the ceremony, that could be a thing as well. But his description is fine. His just this that other dialogue works. You set up the parents, which is good. I actually really liked the elder, like the kind elder. Dear, what? That's how do you pronounce his name? Dearmud. I actually really liked his character. He's really interesting. He's like the kind like old elder who like I feel like he's probably gonna die. But I liked his character. Oh man. You put a kind old senior in there. He's probably getting killed off, unfortunately. He seems like potentially a mentor character. Let's see, and this is good. We're here to celebrate. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I was able to pick up on that. He's like the cool kind of old mentor character. I actually like that. You did some nice setup with him. Dot padded. Yeah, you did some nice setup with him to kind of make him come across as that kind old elder, and I actually liked that. That works well. Let's see, and then the ceremony itself is good. You do a really good job actually during the ceremony. You do a really good job of setting up the ambiance with like the noise and the way the people are reacting. You do a really good job. So it actually pulls me into the ceremony more. And I'm like, so what's this? So he's becoming a man, he's becoming a hunter. So then their society is like, all right, they're like a hunter gatherer type society, which is interesting. And worse, he lives and has to watch his people die. Oh, that's sad. That sucks. That's good. That's good for the story. Good for the story, but still sad. Let's see. Any next steps down the path of his journey. Or kind of believe he has chosen. So this section is good with Elder Dearmud. Elder Dearmud's section is good. One of the 9, he was old and riddled with scars, but his gaze. I highlighted this because the second Elder, taking Lorcan's frame. The second Elder, I love the description. So the description is old and riddled with scars. If this character is not important, then it doesn't matter. But if he is, if you are doing some development, give him a name. Because since you made a point to define 9 elders, you defined Elder Dearmud. I would make sure to define whoever this elder is, since you made a point to define the elders. So I'd make sure that you name whoever this elder is. Raking over Lorcan's frame. The man's actions are good, right? So he's like the more like harsh, stern one. That's good. His action is good. This one bit of dialogue with his with this what's that? Yeah. Let's see what was. So I'm just going to call him the Scar Elder, the riddled and scarred elder. So with the riddled and scarred elder, with this dialogue right here, I would just break this up with a little. I would break up some type of action in between it, because you've done some work here in setting up suspense just by introducing this, like the creepy old elder. There's a elder for each career path, but otherwise it's not important. Yeah, I would say that I call him the Elder Hunter. Yeah, then I would call him Elder Hunter then. I would absolutely call him Elder Hunter. Yeah, he doesn't actually need to be an important character, but this moment is important. And I think that's why I would name him. I like that. That's actually really interesting that there's a career path for each. That's actually really interesting. I like that concept. Let's see, hunting. Oh yeah, so I was saying with his dialogue, break it up with a little bit of action in between. You've done a job of setting up his description as some suspense, but it kind of feels like I'm like, okay, so he speaks, and it feels like he would kind of be doing something, or like you've set him up as being kind of creepy or scarred or whatever. Like I would add some type of suspense thing that he does in between his dialogue. The previous elders, that wasn't necessary because he already does action with Elder Deermuds, and he's kind of more the kind-hearted mentor. This one, because he sent up this guy to be kind of creepy with his scar appearance, I think that action, adding some sort of suspense action in between, whether it's him doing it or whether it's Lorcan responding or something, I think would help build suspense for this moment. It was the moment of truth. This ending moment here is good. This moment is good. Are you sure that this is the life you chose? This is perfect. Like beautiful, because this is the buildup to the entire story. And I actually want to see where I'm at. So if I was in a normal story, let's see where, let's do 12 again. All right, so 16. So that probably puts me at about page 10. All right, so this is going to put me roughly around page 9 to 10, the moment that he becomes a man. All right, that's important. Yeah, so since this moment is such a defining moment for these first 10 pages, I would build up the suspense in this moment as much as possible, because you almost want the reader to think like, oh, what if Lorcan doesn't become a man? What if he like fails the ceremony? We as the reader know nothing about it, right? So for all we know, like there could be a failing thing to it, even though like obviously as the author. So I think build up the suspense as much as possible would be great. Oh. This is all just ceremonial stuff. You turn back the table. This is really more world building for showing what the world is like. Your use of sound is really good. Remy, I really want to call out your use of sound. A lot of times things that writers struggle with, leveraging the 5 senses. So the use you've really made such a great use of sound in this is really impressive. Really great work. Stories that tend to do the best are stories in which the majority of the story is able to leverage the different senses in and out between characters, description, dialogue, world building, and so on and so forth. So that's actually really cool to see. This is awesome. This is a big moment for our character. And then for her, I would actually dig into her interiority for this a little bit more, because this is a big moment for her. And since she's our protagonist, and we've had where if this was short, and this is about 10 pages, I haven't gotten too much about her quite yet. Other than that, like her hair is a thing. She's young, she has a family, and she's proud of her brother. So this seems like because this is the end beat of this ceremony, I want to know a little bit more just about how she feels. Now, you probably jump into this after the ceremony, but I think because this is where the beat ends with the brother becoming a man, I think it would be powerful to include even like make this like a paragraph and dig into it here. Would be good. Okay, what else do we got? Oh, and then just this paragraph here as people finished eating. This is just another like break it up. If there's one thing that I don't that I tried to stay away from, it's just long blocks of action or long blocks of sentences to minimize the chance of losing your reader. Can you get away with this? Absolutely. But my philosophy, make it as easy as possible to be a reader. And that way you increase the likelihood of your readers getting engaged in the story. But other than that, the things that are happening was fun. Perfect. And then that kind of brings us to the end of this little section. So yeah, that's all that I got for you, Remy. Overall, really interesting setup. And even as you've kind of talked about some of the things that are going to be happening with this like plague, it sounds like. There isn't, let's see, you referenced it with this pandemic. So interesting. And clearly anybody alive can relate to a pandemic, clearly, since the world went through that few years over the past year. So that's actually a really good, that's a good way. I think that was it's a smart choice because it's something that people can relate with, at least in terms of like a pandemic type thing. So that was smart. I'm eager to see how the story develops. Awesome. Once again, Remy, thank you so much for sharing and bringing the story. It was really cool. Really, really cool to see. All right. So let's see. Where am I at? Let me check. Okay. So I think with where I'm at, I think I have to wrap up I think I have to put a cutoff on the submissions because I hear my voice going out. I was starting to hear that in the last reading. I'm like, I'm losing my voice. I've only been at this for 3.5 hours. Apparently 3.5 hours, my marker. I wrote the first draft before COVID, but it helped with the editing. Yeah, I totally could imagine that. I could see that. Probably gave you some more like time to work on your editing, which is super cool. Like, wow, Remy, you're like kind of like predicted the future. You're like, I'm going to write a story about a pandemic, and then a pandemic hits the world. I think you have I think you're might be a psychic over here, Remy. Let's see. Yeah, so if I have your story queued or I've received a submission for your story, because I know that there's a number of other ones that I haven't been able to get to. I'll queue them up. They'll be queued for the start of next week's show, because I want to make sure that if I do a reading and I do a critique, that you get the most quality reading and quality critique possible that I can give. So I care about giving you a quality experience. So that way you can improve as a writer, tell the story that you want to tell more effectively, and then help get it published. I think that'd be awesome. Woo! Yep, exactly. Amen. That's awesome. All right, let's see what do we got. So, by the way, as I'm kind of wrapping things up, I wanted to share with you guys. I just dropped my brand new video to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to throw up the picture. I'm like pretty proud of this picture. I'm like, it's not like the best thing, but I'm actually pretty proud. So you should, no, that doesn't look good. So you should check out my new video is called Writer's block is a lie. And there's the there's my thumbnail that I created for it. I'm like, wonderful. So as you're getting out of the stream, you should go check it out. It is, I have it queued up at the beginning of my YouTube channel. Let's see, I'll close out of this. So yeah, go check it out. Writer's block is a lie. This is probably hands down the best writing video that I've created since I've started doing writing videos. This is going to be part of a new series that I'm calling the Whiteboard Sessions. And I wanted to create a format. I'll throw that up there one more time. So I wanted to create a format where it can connect not just with like the audio people who are audio listeners. I wanted to connect with people who are also visual learners. So I did more of a whiteboard approach as I went through as I made the video. So that way you can see the systems that I'm talking about to help you improve as a writer. I'm not going to play it right now, but I think that was something that I cared about. So like, I want you as the writer, I'm trying to come up with ways to like, how do I give you this information in a way that's engaging and helpful? So I really wanted to do something that was audio and visual. So this is going to be part of a new whiteboard series. Go check it out on my YouTube channel at Kaufman's Corner. And I promise you'll get a lot of value out of it. So awesome. Wanted to make sure that I plugged that. Writers, Isabella, you and your bunny chuckers. I was like, so like, for any of you who haven't been sticking along with Last Scarecrow, I want to say there was a moment right before my midpoint. This must have been a couple weeks ago. And one of the primate guards grabs a rabbit and throws the rabbit at the wall. And Isabella's like, what a bunny chucker. I think that name stuck. I feel like that's going to become like a thing. Like writer's block is kind of a bunny chucker. Oh my goodness, those bunny chuckers. And it's funny, I feel like I should have my shirt, like one of my creative shirts is actually a bunny writing. And now Isabella, every single time I wear that shirt, I'm going to be like, bunny chuckers. Oh, I love it. The power of creativity. My favorite. All right, let's see. What do we got? And by the way, on your way out, before you leave the stream, also don't forget, tap that like button. Let me know that you got some value out of this stream, whether you got value out of the readings, the critiques, or anything all together. I try to create as like engaging of experiences, and these Saturday streams are really becoming a lot of fun. And if you want your story read, or let's say you want like another excerpt of your story read, make sure to give me, here you go. Make sure to send an excerpt to thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com, and I'll queue it up for next week's show. I've generally been doing a first come, first serve approach. So whoever gets me their story sooner will be guaranteed, will have a better shot of getting their stories read for the next week. From last week's, I actually had like a high number of submissions. So I always suggest the sooner the better. So that way I can get through them. So definitely do that. And then I will be live again tomorrow. So let's see if come join me tomorrow. I will be back. Oh, that's the wrong one. But let's see, creative writing on the morrow. So I'll be back tomorrow for some more writing sprints, and maybe we'll chat about some creative writing stuff as well. I've been going back and forth every single day. I live stream. Tomorrow will be same time, 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'll be doing a writing sprint, continuing on with Last Scarecrow. We're going to see if they get killed by these light shadow creatures. So I'll be back 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time tomorrow. Come hang out with some other creative writers. We'll chat about creative writing stuff. We'll have a good Sunday. So come join me. And that's all that I got for you today, my friends. And let's see, today I'm going to end off with a cool quote. So today quote of the day. I had this like quote calendar. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to give you a really random quote for the day. Maybe it'll inspire something. Sometimes when we are generous in small, barely detectable ways, it can change someone else's life forever. Lesson about kindness. Okay. Be generous. I'll leave you off with that, my friends. That's all that I got for you today. Remember, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Keep on writing, my friends.